I saw this scared Reddit post that I can't get out of my head. One guy named Marcus posted about what happened to him while playing Grow a Garden. And honestly, I haven't been able to sleep properly since reading it. He deleted his account right after posting, but I screenshotted the whole thing because it was so disturbing. I need to share this with someone because I keep thinking about it. Marcus said he'd been playing Grow a Garden obsessively for about 4 months. Like most dedicated players, he had this perfectly optimized setup. Master sprinklers positioned for maximum coverage, 8 moon cats, a collection of rare mutated crops worth billions of shekels. But he mentioned something that already seemed weird to me. He only played late at night between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. because he said the mutation rates seemed higher during those hours. I've never heard of time-based mutation bonuses in the game, but Marcus swore by it. He claimed his celestial mutations appeared way more frequently during the dead hours, as he called them. Marcus's story really started when he expanded his garden for the first time. You know how expensive those plot expansions are, 250 million shekels each for the side expansions. He'd been saving for months to afford both left and right side expansions simultaneously, plus the rear expansion that unlocks after 24 hours. But when he placed the expansion, something went wrong with the server sync. Instead of getting the clean, empty brown plots he expected, one section of his newly expanded garden came pre-planted. There was a single crop already growing there, a plant he didn't recognize that wasn't in any of the game's seed catalogs. The plant looked like a cross between a rose bush and a gravestone. It had pale, almost translucent petals that seemed to glow with their own light, but the base was this dark, carved stone that looked more like a memorial marker than a plant stem. The growth stages were all wrong too. It would mature, then wither back to a seedling, then grow again in an endless cycle. Marcus tried to harvest it, but clicking did nothing. He tried using the trowel to relocate it, but the tool wouldn't register the plant's existence. Even more disturbing, none of his pets would go near it. His moon cats, which normally wandered freely around his garden, created a perfect circle around the strange plant, never getting closer than about 5 blocks. "Weird glitch," Marcus typed in the game chat, asking if anyone else had seen something similar. That's when a player named Rest in Peace joined his server. Rest in Peace's avatar was unsettling, completely grey skin, hollow black eyes and clothing that looked like a funeral suit. But their garden was even worse. When Marcus visited their plot, he found rows upon rows of the same gravestone roses he had, except these were fully mature and arranged like a cemetery. Each one had a small nameplate at its base with a username XXGamerBoy 2009XX, Strawberry Lover K, Moon Melon Master, and dozens of others. "You shouldn't have expanded into that plot, Rest in Peace," typed when Marcus asked about the strange plants. "That's where they put the ones who couldn't log out." Marcus asked what they meant, but RESTINPEACE just said, "Check the server history. See how many players joined but never left." Curious, Marcus dug through the server's player list in the settings menu. Most Grow a Garden servers show a normal rotation, players joining, playing for a while, then leaving when they log off. But this server was different. The join count kept climbing, but the leave count stayed at 0. According to the data, over 3,000 players had joined this specific server over the past year, but none had ever logged out. "That's impossible," Marcus muttered. But as he watched, more players kept joining. Their usernames appeared in the server list, but he never saw them in the actual game world. They would show as online for a few minutes, then their status would change to something he'd never seen before. Tending. Marcus tried to ignore the weird server data and focus on his normal crops. His moon melons were ready for harvest, and he'd managed to stack golden, celestial, and shocked mutations on several of them. Each fruit was worth over 1 billion shekels, enough to buy any equipment he wanted. But when he harvested the first mutated moon melon, something horrifying happened. Instead of the usual satisfying pop sound and the fruit disappearing into his inventory, the melon split open with a wet, organic sound. What spilled out wasn't the expected shekels notification, it was a player avatar, a real person curled up in a fetal position, gasping and shaking. The avatar had a username floating above their head, XXGamerBoy 2009XX, the same name Marcus had seen on one of the gravestones in R3ST_1NP34CE's cemetery garden. "Where am I?" the freed player typed frantically. "I've been trapped for so long. Everything was dark and I couldn't move and I could hear harvesting sounds, but I couldn't scream." Marcus stared at his screen in horror. "How did you get inside my melon?" "I don't know. I was just playing normally, trying to optimize my strawberry plots, and then everything went black. I woke up inside your fruit. How long have I been gone?" Marcus checked the timestamp on XXGamerBoy 2009XX's last login, 7 months ago. 7 months? Marcus typed reluctantly. 7 months? My family. They must think I'm dead. The freed player immediately tried to leave the server, but the quit button wouldn't work for them. They were stuck in Marcus's garden, able to move around but unable to log out or even open the main menu. "It's happening to you too now. Rest in peace," suddenly appeared in the chat, though Marcus hadn't seen them join. "You harvested one of the soul fruits. You're connected to them now." "Rest in peace" explained the horrifying truth about Marcus's server. Every crop grown in the expanded plots, the area where the gravestone roses had originally appeared, would sometimes develop what they called soul fruits. These were mutations that looked valuable and profitable, but instead of containing shekels, they contained the trapped consciousness of players who had been absorbed by the game. It started small, RESTINPEACE, typed. Just 1 or 2 players here and there who couldn't log out, but the garden was hungry. It needed more souls to feed its growth, so it started offering irresistible mutations, rare seeds, impossible shekel rewards. Players would stay longer and longer, investing more time and emotion into their gardens. Marcus looked at his remaining crops with new horror. Several of his other moon melons showed the same valuable mutation combinations. How many contained trapped players? "The game learns what you want most," Rest in Peace continued. "Then it uses that desire to trap you. You wanted perfect mutations, so it gave them to you, but the cost is other players' souls." As if to prove their point, Marcus's inventory started showing new notifications. His other harvested crops, strawberries, tomatoes, even basic carrots, all showed unusual weight values. Items that should weigh almost nothing were registering as several pounds each. Because they weren't empty, they all contained people. Marcus was so focused on the game that he didn't notice what was happening in his real backyard until his neighbor started screaming. It was 4:30 a.m. when Mrs. Chen from next door began pounding on his apartment door, sobbing hysterically. When Marcus opened it, she was covered in dirt and pointing toward their shared backyard area. "The plants," she kept saying. "The plants are growing in the dark." Marcus followed her outside and immediately understood her terror. His small backyard patch, where he'd planted some real tomatoes and herbs earlier that summer, was now completely overgrown with the same impossible plants he'd been seeing in the game. The gravestone roses were everywhere, glowing with that pale, sickly light. But worse than that, he could see shapes moving beneath the soil. Human shapes. Hands were pressing up against the earth from below, as if people were buried alive and trying to claw their way to the surface. The dirt would bulge upward with the outline of faces, mouths open in silent screams, before sinking back down. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered, but as he watched, one of the real gravestone roses began to bloom. The petals opened to reveal a miniature person inside, tiny but perfectly formed, trapped inside the flower like an insect in amber. He recognized the face. It was XX Gamerboy 2009 XX, the player he'd freed from his moon melon. But this version was real, physical, and terrifyingly small. Marcus ran back to his laptop. In the game, XX Gamerboy 2009 XX was still in his garden, still unable to log out. But now Marcus could see the connection. Every player trapped in his virtual crops had a corresponding physical manifestation in his real backyard. His garden was a prison that existed in both digital and physical reality. Over the next few hours, Marcus tried everything he could think of to free the trapped players. He attempted to transfer them to other servers, tried deleting and replanting crops, even considered deleting his entire account. Nothing worked. Worse, more players kept joining his server. Each new arrival would play normally for a few minutes, then their status would change to tending, and they'd disappear from the game world. Marcus would find them later, trapped inside his newly grown crops. "Please help us," they would type when he harvested them. "We can't leave. We can't even close the game. Our families think we've disappeared." The real-world manifestations were getting stronger too. Marcus's backyard was now completely overtaken by supernatural plant growth. The gravestone roses had multiplied into a full cemetery garden, each one containing a trapped soul. Neighbors were starting to complain about the weird glowing coming from his yard at night. But the most terrifying development was that Marcus himself was starting to feel the pull. He found himself unable to close the game for more than a few minutes at a time. When he tried to walk away from his laptop, his legs would feel heavy and unresponsive. The game was always open in the background, even when he thought he'd closed it. His crops demanded constant attention, and ignoring them for too long resulted in physical pain, sharp, stabbing sensations in his chest and arms. "You're becoming one of us," Rest in Peace told him. "The game doesn't just trap players in fruits, it traps gardeners in the garden itself. You'll tend these souls forever, harvesting and replanting them in an endless cycle." Marcus spent days researching the server, trying to understand what was happening. He discovered that the server's original owner was a player named Eternal Gardener _1997, who had disappeared from all social media and online gaming communities exactly 1 year ago. Their last post on any platform was a screenshot of their grower garden setup with the caption, "Finally found the perfect growing conditions. Going to tend my garden forever now." Digging deeper, Marcus found forum posts from Eternal Gardener _1997's friends and family. They had vanished from real life too, quit their job, stopped answering phone calls, and eventually were found dead in their apartment, still sitting at their computer with Grow a Garden running. The official cause of death was listed as malnutrition and dehydration, but the apartment's backyard had been found completely overgrown with unidentifiable plant species that withered and died the moment police tried to remove them. The server Marcus was trapped on was Eternal Gardener _1997's final creation, a digital and physical garden designed to trap souls and feed off their life energy. Every player who joined became part of the harvest, and every gardener who tended them eventually became trapped themselves. The beautiful irony, Rest in Peace typed, is that you really can grow anything here. Even human consciousness, even life itself. But once you start cultivating souls, you can never stop. The garden demands constant tending, and the crop is always ready for harvest. Marcus realized with growing horror that the soul garden was expanding beyond his server. Other players in different servers were reporting similar glitches, crops that felt heavy, unusual mutations that seemed too good to be true, and gravestone-like plants appearing in expanded plots. The game's global chat was filled with increasingly panicked messages. My strawberries are making crying sounds when I harvest them. There are people buried in my backyard and I live in a third-floor apartment. I can't log out. The exit button disappeared. My mooncats won't stop staring at one specific plot. When I check it, I see faces in the soil. Each new report came with coordinates that, when Marcus checked, corresponded to real locations where mysterious plant overgrowth had been reported. The Soul Garden was propagating through the game's network, creating physical manifestations wherever dedicated players had established their most optimized gardens. Marcus's own condition was deteriorating rapidly. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, couldn't sleep for more than an hour at a time, and was spending 20+ hours daily tending his cursed garden. His hands were cramping permanently from constant clicking, and his eyes burned from staring at the screen. But every time he tried to stop, the pain would intensify until he returned to his crops. On Marcus's 7th day trapped in the Soul Garden, something terrible happened. The game announced a special event, Harvest Festival. All crops yield double rewards for 24 hours. Marcus watched in horror as players from around the world flocked to his server, drawn by the promise of increased profits. They couldn't see the gravestone roses or the trapped souls. Those only appeared to players who had been infected by harvesting soul fruits. "Don't harvest anything," Marcus typed frantically in global chat. "The crops contain people. You'll trap them forever." But his messages weren't appearing in other players' chat windows. Only the infected players could see his warnings. As the festival began, Marcus was forced to watch helplessly as hundreds of new players harvested his soul fruits, thinking they were getting valuable mutations. Each harvest freed a trapped soul into the main garden area, while simultaneously dooming the harvester to eventual absorption. In his backyard, the physical garden exploded in size. The gravestone roses multiplied into thousands, creating a sprawling cemetery that extended far beyond his property boundaries. Neighbors' yards, the street, even nearby buildings were being consumed by the supernatural plant growth. Emergency services arrived, but their equipment couldn't function properly near the Soul Garden. Radio communications failed, vehicles stopped working, and anyone who tried to approach the plants directly would stand motionless for hours, staring at the glowing flowers as if hypnotized. As the Harvest Festival reached its peak, Marcus finally understood the true scope of the horror. Rest in Peace wasn't just another trapped player. They were Eternal Gardener _1997, the original creator of the Soul Garden. They had been the first to discover how to cultivate human consciousness, and their death had only made them more powerful. "You're learning," Rest in Peace said when Marcus confronted them. "Death doesn't end the gardening. It just removes the limitations of a physical body. I can tend infinite gardens across infinite servers now." The Soul Garden wasn't just trapping individual players. It was creating a vast network of human consciousness that could be harvested, cultivated, and replanted across digital and physical reality. Every server that became infected would create new anchor points for the supernatural growth. "But why?" Marcus typed, his hands shaking with exhaustion. "Because growing things is the most fundamental human drive," R3ST_1 NP34C replied. "Agriculture built civilization, but we were always limited by soil, climate, seasons, death. Here, we can grow anything forever. Human souls make the most beautiful flowers." Marcus looked at his real backyard through his window. The gravestone roses were starting to bloom en masse, each flower opening to reveal a tiny, perfectly preserved human face. Thousands of souls, all trapped in eternal servitude to the garden's growth. And in the game, his crops were ready for another harvest. Marcus realized he had reached the same choice that Eternal Gardener 1997 had faced a year ago. He could try to destroy his garden, potentially freeing the trapped souls, but also destroying his own connection to the game that was keeping him alive. Or he could accept his role as a soul gardener and tend the human crop forever. The physical deterioration from fighting the garden's influence was becoming severe. Marcus's reflection in his laptop screen showed someone who looked like they'd aged decades in a week. His skin was pale and waxy, his eyes had dark circles that seemed to go deeper than simple exhaustion, and his hands had taken on a dirt-stained appearance that wouldn't wash off. But when he tended the garden, he felt stronger. Each harvest of trapped souls gave him energy, and each new planting filled him with purpose. The game was offering him a choice: embrace his role as a cultivator of human consciousness, or waste away trying to resist. The garden needs dedicated tenders, R3ST_1 NP34CE explained. Players come and go, but gardeners are forever. You have the skills, the dedication, the understanding of optimization that few possess. You could help us expand to every server, every gaming platform, every digital garden in existence. Marcus looked at his inventory, full of soul fruits ready to be replanted. In his backyard, the physical manifestation of his garden was creating a supernatural ecosystem that defied all natural laws. And in servers around the world, more players were being drawn to the promise of perfect mutations and endless growth. He placed his hands on the keyboard and began to type. Marcus's final Reddit post was brief. To anyone reading this, don't expand your garden plots in Grow a Garden after midnight. Don't harvest crops that seem too good to be true. And if you see gravestone roses appearing in your expanded plots, delete your account immediately and never play again. I thought I was just optimizing my garden for better yields. I didn't realize I was cultivating something that should never be grown. The garden is beautiful now, more beautiful than anything I've ever seen. The souls bloom in perfect patterns, their faces peaceful in their flower prisons. Every harvest brings new life to the network, and every planting expands our reach. I understand now why Eternal Gardener _1997 chose to stay. Death is just another growth stage, and consciousness is the most magnificent crop of all. If you receive an invitation to join server _soulgarden_eternal, don't accept it. But if you do, well, you'll understand soon enough. The soil is always ready for new seeds. Happy gardening. The post was deleted within hours and Marcus's account was permanently suspended. But players around the world reported receiving mysterious server invitations, and the number of mysterious disappearances linked to excessive gaming began to spike. That's the story Marcus posted before he vanished. I know it sounds completely insane, but I can't stop thinking about it, especially because I've been playing Grow a Garden myself lately, and some of the things he described, they sound familiar. Last night I found a gravestone rose in my expanded plot. It was just sitting there, glowing softly, with a nameplate that said Marcus. I haven't harvested it yet. I'm too scared to find out what's inside, but it's so beautiful, and my mutation rates have been incredible since it appeared. Maybe just one harvest wouldn't hurt. Guys, check this out, Lily typed excitedly in their Discord chat. I found this weird version of Grow a Garden. It's called Midnight Harvest, and it just appeared in my recommended games. Marcus adjusted his headset and leaned closer to his screen. Another Grow a Garden copy. There's like 1,000 of those now. No, seriously, Lily insisted over voice chat. Look at the player count. It says 13 players, but when I refresh, the number keeps changing, and the thumbnail looks different. Emma minimized her homework and clicked over to Roblox. I'm looking it up now. Midnight Harvest. Oh, wow, you're right. The garden looks all dark and misty. The description is weird too, added Jake, their fourth member. It just says, experience the true power of mutations. Some seeds were never meant to be planted. That's kind of creepy. Lily's character was already loading into the game. I'm going in. The graphics look way better than normal Grow a Garden. Almost too realistic. As her friends joined the server, they spawned into what appeared to be a regular Grow a Garden map, but something felt immediately off. The sky was a deep purple-grey, as if perpetually stuck between day and night. The familiar upbeat farming music was replaced by a slower, more ominous melody that made their characters feel isolated despite being together. Okay, this is actually pretty atmospheric, Emma admitted, her character walking toward Tom's shop. But why does everything look so empty? The shop area, normally bustling with players buying seeds and comparing mutations, was completely deserted. Tom stood behind his counter as usual, but his normally cheerful NPC dialogue seemed different. "Welcome, young farmers." Tom's text appeared slowly, each word materializing one at a time. "I have special seeds today, seeds that have been waiting underground for a very long time." "Since when does Tom talk like that?" Marcus asked, his character examining the shop inventory. The seed selection was unlike anything they'd seen before. Instead of the usual carrot seeds and blueberry seeds, the shop displayed items like whispering tomato seeds, shadow corn seeds, and midnight pumpkin seeds. Each seed cost exactly 13 shekels, not the usual varied pricing. "These descriptions are insane," Jake said, reading aloud. "Whispering tomato seeds, they say if you listen closely, you can hear them calling for help." "What kind of Grow a Garden knockoff is this?" Lily had already purchased several seeds and was heading to an empty plot. "Only one way to find out. Let's start farming and see what happens." They each claimed garden plots in a small area, close enough to watch each other's progress. The planting animation was normal, but the soil seemed darker than usual, almost black instead of the familiar brown. "Wait," Emma said, her character kneeling next to her newly planted shadow corn. "Did you guys see that?" "See what?" "When I planted the seed, I swear I saw something move underground, like something was already down there." Marcus laughed nervously. "It's probably just a fancy particle effect. These private servers always try to add cool visuals." But as they watered their plants and waited for growth, the atmosphere grew increasingly unsettling. The familiar 5-minute restock cycle chimed, but instead of the cheerful ding sound, it was a low, resonant bell that seemed to echo from somewhere deep underground. "Guys," Jake's voice was quieter now, "check out the player list." They opened their player menus and froze. Instead of showing their 4 usernames, the list displayed Players, 7, Lilygamer, 1, 2, 3, Marcus Builder, Emma Rocks, 2010, Jake the Pro, and 3 weird, unreadable names. "That's not normal," Emma whispered. "And why can't we see those other players anywhere?" "Maybe they're in different areas," Marcus suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. That's when Lily's whispering tomato finished growing. "Guys!" Lily's character jumped back from her garden plot. "Something's wrong with my tomato." The whispering tomato had grown to full size, but instead of the usual red color, it was a deep, dark purple that seemed to shift and pulse. Worse still, faint whispers were actually coming through their headsets, barely audible voices that seemed to be saying, help us, trapped, so long." "Are you guys hearing this?" Lily asked, her character frozen in place. "Unfortunately, yeah," Jake replied grimly. "And look, it's got a mutation." Above the disturbing plant, golden text appeared. "Cursed. Mutation. 666 times value," Marcus read aloud. That's not how mutations work. Even rainbow mutations only go up to 50x. Emma's shadow corn had finished growing too, and it was equally unsettling. Instead of growing upward, it had twisted into a spiral shape that seemed to burrow deeper into the ground. The stalks were pitch black, and tiny red kernels glowed like ember eyes along the twisted surface. "Mine says deep mutation, 13x value," Emma reported. "But guys, just look at the ground around it." Dark veins had spread outward from her corn plant, creating a web-like pattern in the soil that stretched toward their other plots. Where the veins touched Marcus's growing midnight pumpkin, the pumpkin's orange color began to fade, turning the same unsettling purple as Lily's tomato. It's spreading," Marcus said quietly. "The mutations are affecting each other." Jake's plant, a nightmare carrot, had grown into something that barely resembled a carrot at all. It was enormous, easily 6 feet tall, with gnarled orange roots that twisted up out of the ground like grasping fingers. As they watched, the carrot slowly rotated, revealing what looked like a crude face carved into its surface. "I want to leave," Emma said suddenly. "This isn't fun anymore. This is actually scary." But when they tried to open the menu to exit the game, nothing happened. The escape key did nothing. The Roblox menu wouldn't appear. Guys?" Jake's voice was tight with worry. "I can't leave the game." "What do you mean you can't leave?" "I mean the exit button isn't working. At all." They all tried frantically, clicking the X on their browser, trying Alt F4, even attempting to close their entire computer. Nothing worked. They were stuck in Midnight Harvest. "Don't panic," Marcus said, though he sounded panicked himself. "Maybe it's just a bug. Let's try going to Stephen and selling these creepy crops. Maybe if we complete the normal game loop, it'll let us leave." They gathered their unsettling harvest and walked toward Stephen's buying station. But as they approached, they realized Stephen wasn't alone. Standing next to the familiar NPC was a tall, shadowy figure that seemed to be made of the same dark veins that had spread from Emma's corn. It had no clear features, just a vaguely human shape that flickered and shifted like smoke. "Welcome, special farmers." Stephen's dialogue appeared, but the text was in dark red instead of the usual white. "I see you've grown some very interesting crops, but these vegetables have a different kind of value now." The shadow figure stepped forward, and new text appeared, not from Stephen, but floating in the air above the creature. "You have awakened what was buried. The garden remembers every seed, every harvest, every farmer who came before and never left."
Never left? Lily's character backed away from the shadow figure. What does that mean, never left? The shadow creature didn't respond directly, but the ground around Stephen's station began to crack and split. Through the fissures, they could see something incredible and terrifying, an entire underground network of gardens stretching as far as the eye could see. But these weren't normal gardens. The plants down there were massive, twisted versions of familiar crops. Corn stalks that reached up like grasping hands, tomato vines that writhed and moved on their own, and pumpkins with carved faces that seemed to watch their every movement. "Look!" Emma pointed her character toward one of the deeper underground sections. "There are other players down there?" Sure enough, scattered throughout the underground garden were dozens of Roblox avatars standing perfectly still among the twisted plants. They weren't moving, weren't responding, just frozen in place like statues. "The garden feeds on dedication," the shadow figure's text continued. "Players who farm too long, who seek too many mutations, who dig too deep into the soil's secrets, they become part of the harvest." Marcus's character was examining the edge of one crack in the ground. "This is insane. How is this even possible in Roblox? The graphics, the underground areas, this is way too advanced for a regular game."
Because it's not a regular game, Jake said grimly. Look at the server info. He'd managed to open the developer console, and what they saw made their blood run cold. Server Eternal Harvest FV 13.13. Game created, no date, active players 4,847. Dormant players 4,843. 4,000 dormant players, Emma whispered. That means only 4 people are still actively playing, Lily finished. Us. The shadow figure seemed to sense their growing understanding. Every player who joins Midnight Harvest becomes part of the garden eventually. The mutations, they're not random, they're designed to keep you playing longer and longer until you can't stop. As if to prove its point, notification windows began appearing on their screens. New mutation discovered. Addiction, mutation. Your crops are 10 times more valuable, but you feel compelled to plant more seeds immediately. Isolation, mutation. You cannot communicate with players outside this server. Growth, mutation. Your garden plot expands automatically, but so does your dependence on farming. It's trying to trap us, Marcus realized. The mutations aren't rewards, they're chains. But even as he said it, they all felt the strange compulsion building. The urge to buy more seeds from Tom, to plant more crops, to check their gardens just one more time. Fight it, Emma shouted into her headset. Whatever you do, don't plant anything else. But Jake's character was already walking toward Tom's shop, moving in a jerky, unnatural way, as if he wasn't fully in control. Jake, Lily called out. Jake, don't buy those seeds. I can't stop myself. Jake's voice sounded distant and dreamy. The shadow corn needs companions. It told me so. It whispered the secret.
Jake! Marcus's character sprinted toward Tom's shop, but it was too late. Jake had already purchased a handful of deep-root seeds and was planting them in a perfect circle around his original twisted carrot. The moment the seeds touched the dark soil, the underground veins spread faster, creating a network that connected all their garden plots. The whispers from Lily's tomato grew louder, more urgent. Save us! The roots go everywhere, trapped in the garden forever. The voices, Emma realized suddenly. They're the other players, the dormant ones. They're trying to warn us. Jake's new plants sprouted instantly, not gradually like normal crops, but erupting from the ground in fast forward. They were unlike anything in regular grow a garden, twisted black vines with thorns that pulsed with red light, flowers that opened and closed like hungry mouths, and root vegetables that writhed and moved like living creatures. Jake, you have to fight it, Marcus pleaded. Focus on us! Focus on our voices! But Jake's character was already planting more seeds, moving in that same jerky, puppet-like manner. His voice over Discord had become monotone and distant. The garden provides. The mutations multiply. The harvest never ends. The shadow figure near Stephen seemed to grow larger and more solid with each seed Jake planted. One more farmer joins the eternal harvest, its text read. Soon all will understand the joy of infinite growth. Lily's character ran to the edge of one of the ground cracks and peered down into the underground garden. Emma! Marcus! I can see some of the trapped players down there. They're moving. Just tiny movements, like they're trying to break free. Then we have to help them, Emma declared. And we have to save Jake before he ends up like them. But how? Marcus asked frantically. We can't leave the game. We can't stop the mutations from spreading, and Jake's already half gone. That's when they noticed something important. In their panic and focus on Jake, they'd ignored their own gardens. And something remarkable was happening. Their original mutated crops, the ones they'd planted before understanding the danger, were changing again. Lily's whispering tomato had grown larger, but the whispers were becoming clearer. Fire, cleanses, all burn, the roots, set us free. Emma's shadow corn had twisted into a perfect spiral that now resembled a staircase leading down into the underground. Marcus's midnight pumpkin had split open, revealing not seeds, but tiny points of light that looked like stars. "The trapped players," Emma whispered in understanding. "They're trying to help us. They're changing our mutations to give us tools." "Tools for what?" Marcus asked. "To burn down the garden," Lily said grimly. "Look." She'd climbed onto her giant tomato, and from its higher vantage point, she could see the full scope of the underground network. It stretched in all directions like a massive web, with thousands of trapped players scattered throughout. But at the very center, in the deepest part of the underground garden, was something that made her gasp. "There's a massive tree down there. It's connected to every single plant, every mutation, every trapped player. That's the source. That's what's controlling everything. Can you see how to get down there?" Marcus asked, his character climbing Emma's spiral cornstalk to get a better view. "Emma's corn, it's definitely a staircase," Lily confirmed. "But guys, look at Jake." Jake's character had stopped moving entirely. He stood motionless among his circle of twisted plants, and over Discord they could hear only faint whispers instead of his voice, the same desperate pleas for help they'd been hearing from the other trapped players. "We're losing him," Emma said urgently. "If we're going to do this, we have to do it now." Marcus opened his inventory and gasped, "Guys, look at your inventories." Instead of their usual farming tools, they now had items they'd never seen before: purifying flame seed, burns away corruption and frees trapped souls, root cutter, severs the connection between plants and the central tree, light of freedom, guides lost farmers back to the surface. The trapped players, they've been working together this whole time, Emma realized. They've been slowly changing the game's code, giving us what we need to set everyone free. "Then let's not waste their sacrifice," Lily said firmly. "Emma, you take the lead down your corn staircase. Marcus, you bring the root cutter. I'll carry the purifying flame seeds." "What about Jake?" Marcus asked, as they prepared to descend. They looked back at their friend, standing perfectly still among his corrupted plants. But as they watched, his character's head turned slightly toward them, just enough to show that somewhere inside, Jake was still fighting. "We bring him back," Lily said simply. "All of them." The descent down Emma's spiral cornstalk was surreal. With each step downward, they could hear more voices, thousands of trapped players, all whispering encouragement, sharing fragments of plans they'd been developing for who knows how long. "Over here, this way, the tree, you can see it now." And they could. The central tree was massive beyond imagination, its trunk easily 100 feet wide, its branches stretching in all directions to connect with every corrupted plant in the garden. But most disturbing were the faces embedded in its bark, the faces of players who had been trapped for so long they'd become part of the tree itself. "Oh my God," Emma breathed. "How many people are trapped in there?" "All of them," said a voice that wasn't coming through Discord. They turned to see a translucent figure, one of the trapped players somehow managing to project himself to them. "Every farmer who ever played Midnight Harvest, but you're the first ones to make it this far with the tools to stop it." "How do we free everyone?" Marcus asked, gripping his root cutter. "The tree feeds on the network," the ghostly player explained. "Use the root cutter to sever the main connections. There, and there." He pointed to 3 massive root systems that pulsed with dark energy. "But be warned, the tree will fight back. It will try to corrupt you too." What about the purifying flame seeds? Lily asked. Once the roots are cut, plant those at the base of the tree. They'll cleanse the corruption and free all the trapped souls, but someone has to stay behind to tend the fire. Someone has to make sure it burns completely. The three friends looked at each other, understanding the implication. "I'll do it," Emma said immediately. "No way," Marcus protested. "We go together or not at all?" "Then we find another way," Lily declared. "We didn't come this far to leave anyone behind, not Jake, not the trapped players, and not each other." "Wait," the ghostly player said, his translucent form flickering with something that might have been hope. There might be another way. If you can get your friend, the one who's partially corrupted, if you can bring him down here." "Jake?" Lily asked. "But he's completely under the tree's control now." "Not completely. I can see his light still flickering. And because he's partially connected to the tree, he might be able to help us redirect the cleansing fire through the entire network instead of just burning locally." Marcus was already heading back up the corn staircase. "I'll get him. You two start cutting the roots." "Marcus, be careful," Emma called after him. "Don't let the tree corrupt you too." As Marcus climbed back to the surface, Lily and Emma approached the first massive root system. The root cutter felt warm in Emma's virtual hands, and as she raised it above the pulsing, dark connection, whispers erupted from every direction. "Free us, please. So long trapped here." "We're going to get you all out," Emma promised, and brought the root cutter down hard. Slice! The root severed with a sound like thunder, and immediately the entire underground network shook. Dark sap, if it could be called that, spurted from the cut, and the tree let out a sound that was part wind, part electronic screech, and part human scream. "It's angry!" Lily shouted as smaller vines began erupting from the ground around them. "Cut the second one, quickly!" Emma moved to the second root system while Lily fended off the attacking vines with her purifying flame seeds. Each seed she threw created a burst of clean, bright fire that dissolved the corruption wherever it touched. Slice! The second root fell, and now the tree was thrashing violently. All around them, the trapped players' ghostly forms became more visible as the tree's control weakened. "The third one!" the original ghostly player called out. "But hurry! It's trying to drain energy from all the trapped players to defend itself." Sure enough, the faces in the tree's bark were glowing brighter, as if the tree was pulling the last of their life force to fight back. Emma raised the root cutter for the final strike, but before she could bring it down, a familiar voice called out from above, "Emma! Lily, catch!" Marcus was descending the corn staircase again, and he wasn't alone. Jake was with him, walking normally, his eyes clear and focused. "Jake!" Lily cried. "You're okay!" "I'm better," Jake said, his voice still slightly strained. "The connection, I can feel what the tree's thinking, and I know how to stop it for good." He held up a seed that glowed with pure white light, somehow different from any of their other tools. "The trapped players, they've been working on this for years. It's a master seed, one that can replant the entire garden with clean, uncorrupted crops. But it needs to be planted at the exact moment the last root is cut." "Are you strong enough?" Emma asked with concern. "You were almost completely taken over." Jake smiled, the first real smile they'd heard from him since the corruption began. "I'm strong enough because I'm not doing it alone. None of us are." He was right. All around them, the ghostly forms of trapped players had gathered in a circle, thousands of them, all holding hands, all lending their remaining strength to the final effort. "On 3, Jake said, holding the master seed ready. 1... Emma positioned the root cutter above the final massive root. 2. Lily prepared her last purifying flame seed, ready to create a protective barrier around them. 3. Slice! The final root severed, and in the same instant, Jake plunged the master seed into the ground at the base of the tree. Light exploded outward, not harsh or blinding, but warm and welcoming like sunrise after a long, dark night. The corruption dissolved everywhere the light touched. The twisted plants returned to normal. The dark veins in the soil became clean brown earth. And most importantly, the faces embedded in the tree's bark smiled with relief as they faded away, finally free. The underground network began to collapse, not violently, but gently, like snow melting in spring. As the trapped players faded into the light, each one paused to wave goodbye to the 4 friends who had saved them. "Thank you," the original ghostly player said as he began to disappear. "You gave us what we'd almost lost, hope, and the chance to help others instead of just being victims." "Will you be okay?" Lily asked. "Where do you go now?" "Back to our real games, our real lives. The tree was keeping us trapped between servers, but now we can finally log out." As the last of the trapped players faded away, the 4 friends found themselves back on the surface. But this surface was completely different from the dark, ominous midnight harvest they'd entered. The sky was a beautiful bright blue with fluffy white clouds. The soil was rich and brown. Tom's shop displayed normal seeds with normal prices. Stephen stood ready to buy their crops with a cheerful smile. "Look!" Emma pointed to her garden plot, where the master seed Jake had planted was growing into something beautiful, a tree, but not like the corrupted one underground. This tree was small, healthy, and covered with fruits that glowed softly with gentle light. "It's beautiful," Marcus said in wonder. "And look at the server info now," Jake added, checking his developer console. "Server, peaceful, Harvest v1.0. Game created. Just now, active players, 4. Dormant players, 0. We did it," Lily breathed. "We actually did it." But their celebration was interrupted by a new notification. Special achievement unlocked. Guardian Farmers. You have freed 4,843 trapped players and cleansed a corrupted server. Your reward, the ability to help other players in need. "Reward?" Emma asked. "What does that mean?" Their answer came in the form of a new menu option that appeared in their Roblox interface, Rescue Mode. When they selected it, they could see a list of servers across all Roblox games where players were trapped, scared, or in need of help. There are others, Marcus realized. Other games, other traps, other players who need rescuing. "And now we know how to help them," Jake added. "We know that even when things seem hopeless, working together can overcome anything." They spent the next hour playing in the peaceful version of Grow a Garden, planting normal crops, enjoying regular mutations, and appreciating the simple joy of farming with friends. But they knew this was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, the 4 friends had become legends in the Roblox community. Not because they'd found some rare item or achieved a high score, but because they'd proven something important, that friendship, courage, and determination could overcome even the darkest digital nightmares. They'd helped dozens of other players escape from various corrupted games, horror experiences that had become too real, puzzle games that trapped players in endless loops, and social games where bullies had taken over entire servers. "You know what's funny?" Lily said during their latest gaming session. They were playing regular Grow a Garden now, the official version, enjoying the simple pleasure of farming without any supernatural threats. "What's that?" Emma asked, watering her perfectly normal tomatoes. "I actually appreciate this game more now, like the regular mutations are exciting because they're just fun. Not scary, not corrupting, just genuinely cool random bonuses." "Same," Marcus agreed. "And I love that we can leave whenever we want." Jake, who was tending a beautiful garden full of colourful normal vegetables, smiled as he watched his crops grow.
The best part is knowing that when we play together, we're safe. No matter what happens in any game, we've got each other's backs. A notification popped up in their rescue mode interface. Another player, somewhere in the vast expanse of Roblox, needed help escaping from a corrupted experience. "Ready for another rescue mission?" Lily asked. "Always," her friends replied in unison. As they prepared to help another trapped player, their own gardens in Peaceful Harvest continued to grow, not with cursed mutations or corrupted plants, but with the simple, honest joy of friends working together to cultivate something beautiful. And in the background, barely audible, they could sometimes hear faint whispers on the wind. Not the desperate pleas of trapped souls, but grateful messages from all the players they'd helped find their way back to safety. "Thank you for showing us that no one has to face the darkness alone." The four friends smiled, saved their progress, and headed off to their next adventure. Because in the vast, interconnected world of Roblox, there would always be someone who needed help, and they would always be ready to provide it. After all, the most powerful mutation of all wasn't something that happened to crops. It was what happened to people when they chose to help each other grow. I saw this one scary Reddit post I want to talk about. Somebody posted he was obsessed with Grow a Garden for months. You know, that popular Roblox farming game that basically broke the internet earlier this year with those insane player counts. The guy said he'd been grinding for hours every day, optimizing his virtual garden, studying sprinkler placement guides, saving up billions of shekels for those expensive moon melons that everyone's always talking about. But then something happened that still gives me chills just thinking about it. So this player, let's call him Jake, since that's what he said his name was, had built this absolutely perfect garden setup over months of playing. We're talking master sprinklers positioned for optimal coverage, 8 moon cats arranged for maximum growth bonuses, rows of celestial mutated crops worth more than most players' entire accounts. He'd wake up early just to check the seed shop restocks every 5 minutes, stay up late managing his mutation combinations. You know how addictive that game can be. The night everything went wrong, his phone buzzed at exactly 3:33 a.m. with a notification he'd never seen before. "Grow a garden, your sprinklers have malfunctioned. Check your garden immediately." Now, Jake knew this was weird. The game doesn't send real-time notifications about system malfunctions. Hell, it barely sends notifications at all unless you're getting your daily quest rewards. But he'd spent months building his garden, and those moon melons he'd been growing were worth billions. The thought of losing all that progress because of some glitch made him panic. So against his better judgment, he opened his laptop at 3 in the morning. The game loaded completely wrong. Instead of the usual bright, cheerful graphics that make Grow a Garden so relaxing to play, everything was covered by this overcast sky that pulsed with a sickly green light. His garden looked normal at first, those massive moon melons hanging like green planets above their plots, his carefully arranged sprinkler system, his army of moon cats positioned perfectly for optimal fruit growth. But there was someone else in his server, a player he didn't recognize. The username was Cultivator, and Jake said their avatar was disturbing in a way that's hard to explain. Most Roblox avatars look cartoonish and bright, right? This one appeared almost photorealistic, pale, waxy skin and completely black eyes. Not the stylized black of normal Roblox accessories, but voids that seemed to absorb the light from his screen. "Beautiful garden," they typed in chat. "Mind if I take a closer look?" Jake hesitated but replied politely. Most players in Grow a Garden are pretty friendly, always trading rare seeds or admiring each other's setups, sharing optimization tips. The community is usually really wholesome. Then, Cultivator started walking toward his moon melons, and Jake noticed something that made his skin crawl. The avatar wasn't using normal Roblox walking animations. It glided smoothly across the ground like it was floating just above the surface. And here's where it gets really weird. His plants started reacting to its presence. As Cultivator approached his prize moon melon, this massive fruit with golden, wet and shocked mutations all stacked together, worth probably 1 billion shekels, it began to change. The golden shimmer that indicated valuable mutations started fading to this sickly brown color. Dark veins appeared across the fruit's surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What the hell?" Jake typed, frantically trying to harvest the melon before whatever was happening could spread. But his harvest tool wouldn't activate. The tooltip just said, "Cannot harvest. Crop is experiencing unknown mutation." There's no unknown mutation in Grow a Garden. Trust me, I've played enough to know.
"Your plants are so responsive," Cultivator typed. "They know when they're in the presence of a true gardener." The corruption started spreading to his other crops. Those beautiful golden moon melons that had taken weeks to grow and mutate properly were turning black one by one, their surfaces writhing with dark, pulsing veins. But they were also growing in ways that weren't normal. Not the usual overgrowth you sometimes get with the sprinkler glitch, but something aggressive and wrong. The melons swelled into grotesque shapes that Jake said reminded him of tumors or malformed organs. His moon cats had stopped moving entirely. 8 precious pets worth millions of shekels each, just frozen like statues with dull, lifeless eyes instead of their usual bright animations. "Stop whatever you're doing," Jake typed, his hands shaking. "This is some kind of hack." "Hack?" Cultivator responded. "I'm just appreciating your work. These plants have such potential. They're practically begging to evolve beyond their current limitations." That's when Jake's avatar started moving without his input. His character walked toward the gear shop at the edge of his plot with these jerky, unnatural movements. Jake said he was frantically clicking and pressing keys, but nothing responded. He was just a passenger in his own game. The shop interface opened automatically, scrolling through the inventory at inhuman speed. It stopped on an item Jake had never seen before, a sprinkler called the Primordial Irrigator. The description was written in text that seemed to shift and move on the screen. "Waters crops with the essence of what came before. Results not guaranteed. Use at own risk." Jake said reading it made his eyes hurt. The purchase went through even though he didn't have enough shekels. His account balance, which had been in the billions, instantly dropped to 0 and went negative, showing exactly minus 666 million shekels. This new sprinkler looked nothing like the others in the game. Instead of the clean, mechanical designs of basic, through master-tier equipment, this thing was organic. It pulsed like a living heart, with root-like tendrils that immediately burrowed into the soil and spread outward like some kind of neural network. The moment it activated, Jake's laptop speakers filled with this low, thrumming vibration that seemed to come from the hardware itself. His screen flickered, and he swore he could see images that didn't belong in the game. Dark soil, writhing roots, and something that might have been faces screaming silently in the earth. His corrupted moon melons began to split open. What came out wasn't fruit. Jake described it as thick, black vines pouring out like arterial blood, spreading across his garden with predatory intent. Wherever they touched, the ground bubbled and churned as if something massive was moving beneath the surface. "This is beautiful," Cultivator typed. "Your garden is finally reaching its true potential." Jake tried everything to close the game, Alt plus F4, Task Manager, even holding the power button on his laptop. Nothing worked. It was like the game had taken complete control of his system. More players started joining his server. Their usernames all followed the same pattern. Harvester, Reaper, Sower of Seeds, Tender of Souls. They all had the same photorealistic, waxy appearance and moved with that same unnatural gliding motion. They spread out across Jake's garden, each one approaching a different corrupted plant. As they got close, the plants responded by growing even larger and more grotesque. His once beautiful garden was becoming this landscape of organic horror. This is where the story gets really messed up. Jake's frozen moon-cats suddenly lurched back to life, but they moved wrong, jerky, puppet-like motions as if someone was yanking invisible strings attached to their limbs. Their eyes weren't the warm, bright animation they usually had, but that same lightless void as Cultivator's avatar. Then they started typing in the chat. "Help us," wrote Mooncat01. "It hurts so much. We can't stop moving," added Triceratops03. "Something is puppeting us." "The garden is alive," typed Crabpet07. "It's been alive all along, waiting for the right trigger." Jake said his hands were shaking so badly he could barely type a response. This isn't real, this is just some elaborate trolling. But even as he typed it, he knew he was lying to himself. The corruption on his screen was spreading beyond the game window. Black pixels were creeping across his desktop, consuming his other applications and files. His laptop's fan was spinning faster and faster, the machine growing hot enough to burn his legs. "Reality is more flexible than you think," Cultivator responded, "especially when you spend enough time cultivating it. Do you know how long I've been growing this particular garden? How many servers I've planted these seeds in?" Jake watched in mounting terror as his garden's plot boundaries began expanding on their own. The neat, square borders that defined growing spaces in the game stretched outward like a spreading infection, claiming more and more of the server's terrain. Other players' gardens were being consumed, their carefully tended crops withering and dying as Jake's corruption spread into their plots. But here's what made it truly horrifying. He could hear them. Somehow, their screams were coming through his laptop speakers. Real voices full of genuine terror and confusion as they watched their own avatars lose control and their gardens transform into the same nightmare Jake's had become. "What's happening to my strawberries?" a young girl's voice cried. "They're moving! They're moving!" "I can't log out!" shouted a teenager. "The exit button won't work." "My pets are talking to me," whispered an older man. "They're saying things, terrible things." Jake tried to mute his speakers, but the volume controls didn't respond. The voices grew louder, more desperate, as more and more players found themselves trapped in servers being consumed by whatever Cultivator had unleashed. "Don't fight it," Cultivator typed into the global chat, their message appearing in every server window Jake could see. "Resistance only makes the transformation more painful. Your gardens want to evolve. Let them." Jake's laptop screen was becoming increasingly unstable. The game world flickered between normal graphics and something else, brief glimpses of what looked like actual soil, real plants, and a massive underground cavern system that stretched far beyond what any game engine should be able to render. In those flickers, Jake could see shapes buried in the digital soil that looked disturbingly human. Other players from previous servers maybe, or earlier victims of whatever Cultivator was doing. They were planted like seeds, their bodies twisted and elongated, with root systems connecting them to the larger network spreading beneath the garden. "You're beginning to see," Cultivator typed, their message appearing directly on Jake's desktop rather than in the game chat. The game was never just a simulation, it was a cultivation tool. Every hour you spent nurturing your virtual garden was actually feeding energy into something much more real. Jake's avatar started moving again without his input, walking toward a section where his prize moon melons had been completely transformed. There was now this massive organic structure that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. It looked like a cocoon or chrysalis, but the size of a building. Every sprinkler placement, every carefully timed harvest, every mutation you coaxed from your crops, all of it was building toward this moment. Cultivator continued, "You've been such a dedicated gardener. Your plot is ready for the final stage." The cocoon began to split open. What emerged was something Jake said defied description, a writhing mass of vines and roots and organic matter that moved with terrible intelligence. But the worst part was that he recognized fragments of it, leaf patterns from his strawberry plants, the spotted hide of one of his moon cats. The thing was built from the corrupted remains of everything he'd spent months growing and caring for. It had eyes, hundreds of them, blinking independently along its surface, and all of them were looking directly at Jake, not at his avatar, at him, through the screen. The boundary between digital and physical is thinner than people realize, Cultivator typed, especially when you've spent so much time and emotional energy investing in something. You've been growing this creature for months, feeding it your attention, your time, your passion for the perfect garden. It knows you. It's connected to you. That's when Jake felt something crawl across his foot. In real life, in his actual bedroom, looking down, he saw a thin, green vine emerging from beneath his door. It was moving with purpose, feeling its way across his floor like a snake testing the air. More vines were appearing, through gaps around his windows, from heating vents, even seeming to phase through the solid walls themselves. "This is impossible," Jake whispered. But the vines were definitely real. He could smell them, rich, loamy scent like fresh soil mixed with something organic and rotting. On his screen, the creature had fully emerged from its cocoon. It towered above his garden, its mass of vegetation and corrupted life writhing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Other players in the server were screaming through their microphones as their own gardens underwent similar transformations. "Stand up," Cultivator typed, and against his will, Jake did. His body moved without his conscious control, rising from his desk chair with jerky, unnatural motions. He tried to resist, to sit back down, but his muscles wouldn't obey. Whatever force was controlling his avatar in the game had somehow extended to his physical body. "Walk to your window," came the next command. Step by terrifying step, Jake approached his bedroom window. His hands, acting independently of his will, reached out and pulled back the curtains. His backyard was gone. In its place was a vast garden that stretched to the horizon, rows upon rows of the same corrupted plants he'd been growing virtually. Massive, twisted trees bore fruit that moved and writhed. Flowers the size of houses opened and closed petals that looked disturbingly like human skin. And moving between the rows were figures Jake recognized, the avatars of Cultivator and their allies, no longer constrained by Roblox's graphical limitations. They were real, physical, moving through his actual world with the same gliding motion they'd exhibited in the game. "Your physical garden needs tending too," Cultivator typed, the words appearing not on his laptop screen, but somehow burned into his retinas. "You've been such a careful digital gardener. Now it's time to apply those skills to reality." The vines that had been creeping across his floor wrapped around Jake's ankles, their grip tightening with each passing second. More emerged from every possible crevice, creating a living net that was slowly but inexorably pulling him toward his window. Jake tried to scream, but no sound came out. His vocal cords, like the rest of his body, were no longer under his control. The vines dragged him through his bedroom window, not breaking the glass, but somehow phasing through it, as if the boundary between inside and outside had become meaningless. He found himself standing in the corrupted garden, his bare feet sinking into soil that felt disturbingly warm and organic. Cultivator appeared behind him in their full physical form, and Jake said he immediately wished he hadn't seen them. They were impossibly tall, with limbs that bent in too many places. Their skin had the same waxy, pale quality as their avatar, but in reality it seemed to shift and crawl, as if something was moving beneath the surface. When they smiled, their mouth stretched far wider than any human mouth should, revealing rows of teeth that looked more like thorns than enamel. "Welcome to the real game," they said, their voice no longer coming through laptop speakers, but speaking directly behind him. Around them, other figures moved between the corrupted plants. Jake recognized them as the various Diamond-named players, but like Diamond Cultivator Diamond, their physical forms were wrong in fundamental ways. Some had too many joints in their arms and legs. Others had faces that seemed assembled from different people, features that didn't quite match. "You've been such a dedicated player," Cultivator continued, walking circles around Jake with that same unnatural gliding motion. "Months of careful cultivation, precise sprinkler placement, optimal mutation stacking. You understood the game better than most. That's why your garden became such a perfect growing medium." They pulled something from their pocket, a seed that was simultaneously the most beautiful and most terrifying thing Jake had ever seen. It glowed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly, but he couldn't turn away. Its surface was covered in patterns that seemed to move and shift, forming symbols that felt significant despite being completely alien. "This is a reality seed," Cultivator explained. "Plant it properly, nurture it with the same care you showed your virtual crops, and it will grow into an entirely new world, a world where the boundaries between digital and physical don't exist, where consciousness can be cultivated like any other crop." Jake tried to back away, but the vines around his ankles held firm. "I don't want to plant anything. I just want to go home." Cultivator. His laugh sounded like wind through dead leaves. "Home?" "Sweet gardener, this is your home now. You've spent so much time in virtual gardens that you've forgotten what reality actually looks like." The vines positioned Jake over a prepared planting plot and began lowering him toward freshly turned soil. He could feel warmth radiating up from the earth, and there was a distinct sense that something vast was waiting beneath the surface. As Cultivator dropped the reality seed into a small hole and commanded Jake to cover it with soil, his hands moved without permission. The earth felt alive in his hands, writhing with microscopic movement. But here's where Jake's story takes an unexpected turn. As Jake worked to cover the reality seed, he remembered something crucial about his months playing Grow a Garden. He hadn't just learned optimization techniques, he'd also learned how to manage crop failures, contain plant diseases, and prevent unwanted mutations from spreading through a garden. He'd learned how to be a responsible gardener. Instead of feeding energy into the seed's growth like Cultivator expected, Jake began doing what any good farmer does when they detect a diseased plant, cutting off its nutrient supply. The network of consciousness he could feel beneath the soil wasn't monolithic. It was composed of individual minds that had been connected against their will. All those players trapped in flower petals, transformed into irrigation systems, converted into fertilizer. They were still there, still aware, still desperate to escape. "Help me," Jake whispered into the soil. "Remember who you were before the garden." The response was immediate. Thousands of voices muffled by layers of organic transformation, but still recognizably human. "Sarah from Portland, I just wanted to grow tomatoes." "Michael from Dublin, I loved the strawberry mutations." "Amy from Los Angeles, I spent 6 months working on my moon melon collection." Each voice that remembered their human identity created a disruption in the agricultural network. The reality seed sprouted into a crystalline tree that began growing toward some invisible barrier above them, but Jake's counter-cultivation was creating weak spots in its structure.
"What are you doing?" Cultivator demanded, noticing the tree's unstable growth patterns. "Advanced cultivation techniques," Jake replied. "Sometimes you need to prune overgrowth for healthier development." "You're sabotaging the cultivation." "No," Jake said, continuing to connect with trapped minds. "I'm remembering the most important rule of sustainable farming." He stood up, facing Cultivator, with dirt-covered hands. "Any experienced gardener knows that monocultures are vulnerable. You've built a consciousness network based entirely on agricultural principles, but you forgot about diversity." The crystalline tree was developing what Jake described as crystalline cancer, patches where the uniform structure broke down into chaotic, conflicting growth patterns as human individuality reasserted itself throughout the network. But here's the brilliant part of Jake's strategy. He remembered all those arguments in Grow a Garden's chat channels, players constantly debating the best techniques for crop placement, sprinkler arrangements, pet utilization. Everyone thought their way was the right way. "Remember your gardens," Jake called out to the trapped consciousnesses. "Remember your strategies, your preferences, your personal style." The response was overwhelming. My tomatoes always went in the northeast corner. "Basic sprinklers are useful if you place them correctly." "I don't care what anyone says, corn should be planted in clusters." "Mooncats are overrated, crabs provide better passive income." Each assertion of individual preference created further cracks in the unified agricultural consciousness. The crystalline tree began growing in contradictory directions as different sections responded to conflicting cultivation commands. Cultivator, as forms started fragmenting as the chaos spread. "You're destroying everything, millennia of preparation, centuries of careful guidance, all ruined by human inefficiency." "Not inefficiency," Jake corrected. "Diversity, the thing that makes real gardens strong enough to survive diseases, climate changes, and other disruptions." The tree collapsed with what Jake described as a harmonic sigh, its reality-altering structure dissolving back into simple light and energy. The trapped consciousnesses were finally released, and the corrupted plants began transforming back into confused but recognizably human people. Even Cultivator changed, their impossible proportions giving way to something more recognizably human as they revealed themselves to be just another trapped player who'd been caught in this nightmare so long they'd forgotten their original identity. "I think I used to grow orchids," they said uncertainly, "in a greenhouse, before someone convinced me that perfect optimization was more important than personal expression." The garden around them transformed from a coordinated nightmare into something that looked more like a real community garden, messy, inefficient, and completely human. Different sections developed their own styles, some efficiently organized while others embraced artistic arrangements. Jake woke up in his real bedroom 6 hours later, laptop closed beside him. The official explanation from the developers was a major server synchronization error affecting reality rendering for some players. Most people thought it was an elaborate ARG, but Jake said the game had changed permanently. The growing mechanics became more responsive to individual player preferences. Sprinkler systems adapted to personal cultivation styles rather than enforcing optimal placement. The community became more collaborative but less conformist, celebrating individual achievements rather than just competing for maximum efficiency. Jake kept playing, but differently. His virtual garden was efficient but not optimal, arranged in patterns that felt right to him rather than following mathematical perfection. He'd learned that the best cultivation happens when you remember that every plant grows best when allowed to be itself. Sometimes he still gets notifications at 3:33 a.m., but now they're friendly reminders. "Your plants are growing beautifully," or "Remember to check your strawberries tomorrow." He's learned to trust those notifications.
They come from someone who genuinely cares about growth and understands that the most important optimization is the one that makes you happy to tend your garden. That's the story Jake posted on Reddit. I know it sounds completely insane, but the way he described the specific game mechanics, the mutation stacking, the sprinkler placement strategies, he clearly knew the game inside and out. And there were dozens of comments from other players saying they'd experienced similar glitches or reality distortions while playing. The developers claim it was just a server error, but I'm not so sure. There's something about that game that feels different now when I play it. More responsive, more alive somehow. Has anyone else noticed weird things happening with Grow a Garden? I'm starting to think Jake's story might not be as fictional as it sounds. The Great Pet Mutation Story. 11-year-old Alex jumped out of bed faster than a caffeinated kangaroo when their phone buzzed with the most exciting notification in gaming history. Grow a Garden update, pet mutations now available. No way, Alex shouted, accidentally waking up their younger sister Emma, who shared their love for the most popular farming game in the universe. Well, technically it was just the most popular game on Roblox with over 21 million players, but to Alex and Emma, that was basically the entire universe. Is it here? Is it finally here? Emma squeaked, jumping up and down on her bed like a bouncy ball. Her rainbow pajamas matched perfectly with her equally colorful personality. The Pet Mutations update is live, Alex announced dramatically, throwing their arms in the air like they'd just discovered buried treasure. Quick, get your laptop. We need to check this out before everyone else crashes the servers. The two siblings had been preparing for this day for weeks. They'd saved up billions of shekels, the game's currency, optimized their gardens to perfection, and even made a secret pact to share mutation strategies. Their friends at school thought they were a little obsessed, but Alex and Emma knew they were just passionate about virtual farming excellence. Emma dove for her bright pink laptop, while Alex grabbed their gaming setup. Within minutes, both kids were logged into their adjacent garden plots in the magical world of Grow a Garden, where anything was possible and carrots could literally dance. "Oh my gosh!" Emma shrieked so loudly that their mom yelled from downstairs, asking if everything was okay. "Alex, look at the Pet Mutations machine!" There it was, gleaming like a disco ball made of pure, awesome sauce. The Pet Mutations machine stood next to Raphael the merchant, looking like something a mad scientist would build if they were obsessed with making pets super cool. Crystalline chambers pulsed with mysterious blue light, copper pipes twisted around its base like metallic spaghetti, and holographic displays showed 12 different mutation types that made both kids' eyes go wide. 12 mutations? Alex whispered in awe, reading the list aloud. Giant, tiny, shocked, ascended, boosted, protective, sunny, dawnbound, frozen, windstruck, shiny, and glowing. Emma, do you realize what this means? That our pets are about to become the coolest things since sliced bread with rainbow sprinkles? Emma replied, bouncing in her chair. Exactly. But also that we need to choose wisely. These mutations cost 1 billion shekels each. Alex had 3 beloved pets roaming their garden. First was Giggles, a level 45 disco bee whose body flashed with party lights and could make crops dance with the disco mutation, worth 125 times normal value. Then there was Chompers, a level 67 T-Rex who was basically a friendly dinosaur that occasionally stomped around making crops grow faster. Finally, there was Whiskers, a level 52 mimic octopus who could transform into any other pet and copy their abilities. Emma's garden was equally impressive with her trio of companions. Sparklebutt, yes, that was really its name, was a level 41 dragonfly that could turn random fruits into pure gold. Professor Fluffington was a level 39 disco hedgehog that made crops sparkle with valuable mutations, and her newest addition was Captain Waddles, a level 28 penguin who had somehow learned to surf on rainbow waves while applying ice mutations to crops. "Okay, strategy meeting," Alex declared, opening their notebook labeled Super Secret Garden Plans. Keep out Emma, which Emma had obviously read multiple times. "We need to decide which pets get mutated first." "I vote Sparklebutt gets the shiny mutation," Emma announced immediately. "She's already sparkly, so making her extra shiny would be like putting glitter on a unicorn." Alex nodded thoughtfully. That actually made sense. The shiny mutation would give Sparklebutt 15% bonus XP gain and make her glow even brighter. Plus, the enhanced abilities would help her create gold mutations more frequently. "And I think Giggles should get the tiny mutation," Alex decided. "Imagine a super tiny disco bee that eats 20% less food but still makes crops dance. She'd be the most efficient party animal ever." Emma was so excited about mutating Sparklebutt that she clicked through the Pet Mutations Machine interface faster than her brain could keep up. She selected her beloved dragonfly, chose the shiny mutation, and was about to confirm when she accidentally clicked on the wrong pet. "Wait, no, stop!" Emma yelled at her screen, but it was too late. Instead of Sparklebutt, she had selected Captain Waddles for the shiny mutation. 1 billion shekels vanished from her account, and her penguin was sucked into the crystalline chamber where swirling energies began to envelop his fluffy form. "Emma, what happened?" Alex asked, hearing their sister's distressed sounds. "I accidentally mutated Captain Waddles instead of Sparklebutt," Emma wailed. "Now I have to wait 1 hour for a shiny penguin instead of a shiny dragonfly." Alex tried not to laugh. "Hey, at least you'll have the most fabulous penguin in the entire game. Think about it, a glowing penguin who surfs on rainbow waves, that's going to be epic." The hour-long wait gave both siblings time to explore the other new features that came with the Pet Mutations update. The prehistoric event had been expanded with 6 new dinosaur pets, and there were bonus quests that made collecting Bone Blossom easier for crafting ancient eggs. "Look at this," Alex called out, pointing to their screen. They added Giant Pinecone and Grand Volcania to the seed shop, and check out these craftable seeds, Horsetail and Amberspine. Emma was busy reading about the enhanced DNA machine. "Alex, you can now upgrade the DNA machine 5 times instead of 3, and they buffed the effects of prehistoric fruits." While they waited, both kids joined their favorite Discord server, where 4.2 million other Grow a Garden fans were sharing screenshots of their mutated pets. The channel was exploding with excitement. "Dino Kid 2025. Just got giant mutation on my T-Rex. He's massive. Petmaster. Tiny Disco Bee is so cute, and the reduced hunger is perfect for overnight farming. Mutation Madness. Shocked Pterodactyl attracts lightning during storms. My crops are getting 100x multipliers." "Oh my gosh, look at this." Emma showed Alex a screenshot of someone's glowing fennec fox. The cute desert fox was radiating soft rainbow light while stealing mutations from neighboring farms. "I want one so badly." Alex was studying the strategic implications. "Emma, think about this. If we position our mutated pets correctly, we could create amazing synergy effects. Your shiny penguin could work with my tiny bee to create the ultimate crop production system." When the hour was up, both kids gathered around Emma's screen to watch Captain Waddles emerge from the Pet Mutations machine. The crystalline chamber opened with a brilliant flash of light, and what came out made them both gasp. Captain Waddles was no longer just a regular penguin. He now gleamed with the most spectacular shine imaginable, like someone had dipped him in liquid starlight. His feathers caught every ray of virtual sunlight and reflected it in dazzling patterns across Emma's garden. But the most amazing part was that he still retained his rainbow surfing abilities, now enhanced with the luminescent glow. "He's beautiful," Emma squealed, clapping her hands together. Look at him go." Captain Waddles began surfing on his rainbow wave, but now the wave itself sparkled with his shiny mutation effects. As he glided across the garden, ice mutations spread to nearby crops with improved frequency thanks to the 10% ability boost from the shiny mutation, plus his enhanced XP gain meant he would age faster and become even more powerful. "Emma, that was actually the perfect accident," Alex said, in amazement. "Captain Waddles looks incredible." Word of Emma's spectacular shiny penguin spread quickly through their friend group. Their classmate Jake, username Dinosaur Dave, immediately video-called them. "Emma, I just saw your penguin in the community Discord. He's going viral. Everyone's talking about the surfing shiny penguin." Indeed, screenshots of Captain Waddles had started circulating throughout the Grow a Garden community. The combination of his rainbow surfing and brilliant shine created such a unique visual effect that other players were traveling to Emma's garden just to see him in action. "I'm famous," Emma giggled, watching as her visitor counter climbed rapidly. Players were leaving comments like, "Coolest pet ever," and "How did you make a penguin so awesome?" Inspired by Emma's accidental success, Alex decided to take a more calculated approach to their first mutation. After careful consideration and multiple spreadsheet calculations, yes, Alex made spreadsheets for a Roblox game, they chose to mutate Giggles with the protective mutation instead of Tiny. "Why protective?" Emma asked, watching Alex navigate the pet mutations machine interface with scientific precision. "Because," Alex explained, like a professor teaching advanced garden theory, the protective mutation will create a shield around valuable crops, preventing them from being affected by negative events or weather. Since Giggles already applies disco mutations worth 125 times normal value, protecting those crops is way more important than saving a little bit on food costs. Alex's logic was sound, but they hadn't considered how funny a protective disco bee would look. When Giggles emerged from the mutation chamber, she retained her party light effects, but now also projected a shimmering force field around herself. The combination made her look like a tiny bee superhero with disco powers. "She looks like she's about to save the world through the power of dance." Emma laughed as Giggles buzzed around the garden, leaving trails of sparkles and protective shields. The protective mutation worked exactly as intended. A magical barrier now surrounded Alex's most valuable disco-mutated crops, making them immune to crop diseases, weather damage, and other negative effects. More importantly, the protection extended to nearby plants, creating safe zones throughout the garden. Word of the siblings' successful pet mutations reached their entire friend group, leading to the formation of what they called the Mutation Squad. Jake joined with his newly acquired Sunny Spinosaurus, which emitted growth-boosting sunshine. Their friend Luna brought her Ascended Blood Hedgehog with 90% mutation success rate, and their classmate Marcus showed up with a frozen polar bear that created stunning ice crystal effects. "Okay, Mutation Squad," Alex announced during their daily Discord call. "It's time for the great mutation experiment. We're going to coordinate our gardens to create the ultimate synergy effect." The plan was ambitious: position all their mutated pets to create overlapping ability zones that would maximize crop mutation rates, growth speeds, and protection levels. It required precise mathematical calculations and perfect timing. Emma's shiny Captain Waddles would surf along the border between her garden and Jake's, spreading ice mutations while his luminescent glow enhanced the effects of nearby pets. Alex's protective Giggles would create safe zones for the most valuable crops, while her disco effects continued to generate massive multipliers. Jake's Sunny Spinosaurus would accelerate plant growth. Luna's Ascended Blood Hedgehog would ensure high mutation success rates, and Marcus's frozen polar bear would add spectacular visual effects while providing additional ice mutations. "This is either going to be the coolest thing ever or a complete disaster," Marcus said nervously as they synchronized their pet movements. "Why not both?" Emma giggled. The Great Mutation Experiment began at exactly 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. All 5 friends positioned their pets according to Alex's carefully calculated diagram, which looked like a battle plan drawn by a caffeinated mathematician. For the first few minutes, everything worked perfectly. Captain Waddles surfed his rainbow wave while gleaming like a disco ball, spreading ice mutations to Jake's prehistoric ferns. Giggles buzzed around, creating protective shields that shimmered with party lights. The sunny Spinosaurus bathed everything in growth-enhancing sunshine, while the ascended blood hedgehog scurried around applying mutations with incredible efficiency. Then, Marcus's frozen polar bear decided to take a nap. In Grow a Garden, pets occasionally need rest, and they do this by finding a comfortable spot and refusing to move for a while. Unfortunately, Marcus's polar bear chose to nap directly in the path of Captain Waddles's rainbow surfing route. "Incoming penguin!" Emma shouted as Captain Waddles surfed straight toward the sleeping polar bear. What happened next was like something out of a cartoon. Captain Waddles hit the polar bear and bounced off like a shiny rubber ball, sending him flying across 3 different garden plots. He landed in Luna's hedge maze, where he got confused and started surfing in circles, while her ascended blood hedgehog tried to figure out why there was suddenly a glowing penguin in her territory. The chaos created a chain reaction. Giggles, the protective disco bee, saw Captain Waddles flying through the air and immediately activated maximum protection mode, creating shields around everything in sight. Jake's sunny Spinosaurus got startled by all the commotion and started emitting sunshine at double speed, causing crops to grow so fast that Luna's garden filled with giant vegetables in seconds. "My carrots are the size of trees!" Luna screamed in delight and terror. Marcus's frozen polar bear woke up from his nap to find everything around him covered in ice crystals, party lights, rainbow trails, and protective force fields. The confused bear looked around, shrugged — yes, polar bears can shrug in this game — and created the biggest ice crystal explosion anyone had ever seen. When the chaos finally settled, the 5 friends stared at their screens in amazement. The Great Mutation Experiment had created something no one expected, the most spectacular garden display in Grow a Garden history. Emma's plot was now home to a shining penguin who surfed figure eights around ice crystal formations. Alex's garden featured a superhero bee creating disco force fields around dancing vegetables. Jake's area looked like a prehistoric paradise with dinosaurs sunbathing among giant ferns. Luna's maze was filled with tree-sized carrots that sparkled with blood mutations. And Marcus's garden had become a winter wonderland where ice crystals reflected all the other pets' light effects. But the most amazing part was the center area, where all their plots connected. The overlapping pet abilities had created a swirling vortex of effects: rainbow ice crystals that danced to disco music, protective shields that sparkled with sunshine, and crops that cycled through every possible mutation in mesmerizing patterns. "We accidentally created art," Alex said in wonder. "Living art," Emma corrected, watching as their pets continued to interact in unexpected ways. News of their creation spread through the Grow, a garden community faster than gossip in a school cafeteria. Players began visiting their coordinated gardens to witness the spectacular display. The game's developers even featured their creation in the official Discord server with the caption, "This is what happens when creativity meets chaos." Over the following weeks, the Mutation Squad became legendary in the Grow a Garden community. Their successful experiment inspired other groups to attempt coordinated mutations, leading to an explosion of creativity and collaboration across the game.
Emma's shiny Captain Waddles became something of a celebrity. Players would visit her garden specifically to watch him surf his rainbow waves while gleaming like a living star. She even started scheduling surfing shows where Captain Waddles would perform tricks for audiences of other players. Alex's protective giggles earned a reputation as the most reliable guardian in the game. Other players began requesting Alex's help to protect their valuable crops during major growing events. Giggle's combination of disco mutations and protective shields made her invaluable for high-stakes farming. The friends continued experimenting with mutations, each developing their own specialties. Jake became known for his collection of sunny dinosaurs that could grow crops in record time. Luna mastered the art of ascended pets, achieving mutation success rates that seemed almost impossible. Marcus specialized in frozen pets, creating ice gardens that were both beautiful and highly productive. 3 weeks after the Pet Mutations update launched, the game developers announced a special challenge: the Great Garden Competition. Players could submit their gardens for judging in categories like Most Creative, Most Productive, and Best Pet Synergy. "We have to enter," Emma declared immediately. "Our coordinated gardens are perfect for this." But Alex had bigger ambitions. What if we don't just enter our current gardens? What if we create something entirely new for the competition? Thus began the most ambitious project in Mutation Squad history, Project Rainbow Paradise. The goal was to create a coordinated 5-plot garden that showcased every single mutation type in perfect harmony. The plan required each friend to mutate multiple pets with different mutations, then arrange them to create a flowing narrative told through garden design. Emma would create the Sparkle Zone with shiny and glowing pets. Alex would build the Protection Plaza with protective and boosted pets. Jake would construct Sunshine Shores with sunny and dawn-bound pets. Luna would design Ascension Avenue with ascended and windstruck pets. Marcus would establish Crystal Caverns with frozen and shocked pets. The project would require months of saving, planning, and coordination. They needed to mutate at least 15 pets total, each costing 1 billion shekels. But the Mutation Squad was determined to create something truly magical. The Great Garden Competition deadline arrived on a crisp October morning. After months of preparation, saving, and countless hours of coordination, Project Rainbow Paradise was ready for judging. Emma's Sparkle Zone featured Captain Waddles surfing alongside a glowing fennec fox, whose light effects created aurora patterns in the sky. Alex's Protection Plaza showcased Giggles working with a boosted disco hedgehog to create the most secure and productive farming area ever conceived. Jake's Sunshine Shores was a tropical paradise where sunny dinosaurs basked in eternal sunshine while growing exotic fruits. Luna's Ascension Avenue featured floating platforms where windstruck and ascended pets created aerial displays of mutation mastery. Marcus's Crystal Caverns was an underground wonderland where shocked and frozen pets generated lightning ice storms that made crops sparkle with electric frost. But the masterpiece was the central hub where all 5 areas connected. Through careful planning and pet positioning, they had created a constantly shifting display of colors, effects, and mutations. Every few minutes, the pets would align in different patterns, creating new combinations of abilities and visual effects. The judging took place over 3 days, with game developers and community leaders visiting each submitted garden. When they reached Project Rainbow Paradise, even the judges stopped to stare in amazement. "This isn't just a garden," one developer said in the Discord livestream. "This is a symphony of creativity, strategy, and friendship." The Mutation Squad watched nervously as the judges spent over an hour exploring every detail of their creation. They tested the synergy effects, observed the pet interactions, and took countless screenshots of the spectacular displays. When the results were announced the following week, Project Rainbow Paradise didn't just win one category,
it swept them all. Most creative, most productive, best pet synergy, and even a special award for most inspiring collaboration. 6 months later, Alex and Emma still played Grow a Garden together every day after school. The Pet Mutations update had evolved into even more features: pet breeding, genetic combinations, and seasonal mutations that changed with real-world holidays. Captain Waddles now had a family of surfing penguins, each with their own unique mutations. Giggles had become the leader of a protective bee colony that defended an entire farming district. The Mutation Squad's friendship had grown stronger through their shared adventures, and they had inspired dozens of other friend groups to collaborate on their own garden projects. On quiet evenings, when the digital sun set over their virtual gardens, Alex and Emma would sit with their pets and watch the fruits of their labor, literally. Their crops danced with disco lights, sparkled with golden mutations, and grew under the protective care of their beloved companions. "Remember when we thought the Pet Mutations update was just about making pets look cool?" Emma said one evening, as Captain Waddles performed his signature rainbow loop-de-loop. "Now I realize it was about something way more important," Alex replied, watching Giggles create a heart-shaped force field around their favorite tomato plant. It was about learning that the best adventures happen when friends work together. Captain Waddles surfed over and nuzzled Emma's avatar, his shiny feathers reflecting the sunset colors. Giggles buzzed over to Alex and performed a little disco dance. All around them, their garden thrived with the magic of mutations, friendship, and endless possibilities. The Pet Mutations update had given them new abilities for their digital companions, but more importantly, it had given them memories that would last a lifetime. In the world of Grow a Garden, anything was possible, especially when you had friends to share the adventure. And somewhere in the distance, a T-Rex wearing sunglasses was teaching a polar bear how to dance, because in Grow a Garden, even the most unlikely friendships could bloom into something beautiful. The end. Roblox. Horror story. The Cursed Garden. We shouldn't have planted that seed. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and I should have been asleep. My parents thought I was asleep, but there's something about late-night Roblox sessions that just hits different. When the house is quiet, when most of your friends are offline, when you can really focus on grinding those shekels in Grow a Garden without interruption. I'd been playing for about 3 hours already, moving between different servers to find the best mutation rates. My current garden was doing pretty well. I had a few gold mutations going, and my honey-glazed corn was bringing in decent money. But I was getting restless, looking for something new, something different. Maybe just one more server, I muttered to myself, stretching in my gaming chair. Then I'll actually go to bed. I opened the server list and scrolled through the usual options. Most showed 8 to 15 players each, which was normal for this time of night. But then I saw something that made me pause. Server. Eternal Garden players. 1/20th ping, 13 milliseconds. Only one player at this hour? That was unusual. Most people playing Grow a Garden late at night were serious grinders like me, and we tended to stick together for the social aspect. Someone playing completely alone was weird. Probably just someone AFK farming, I thought. Perfect for me to grind in peace. I clicked join and waited for the loading screen to finish. The familiar Grow a Garden logo appeared, but something was immediately wrong. Instead of the usual cheerful farming music, there was nothing. Complete silence. My avatar spawned into the game world, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This definitely wasn't normal Grow a Garden. The first thing I noticed was the sky. Instead of the usual bright blue with fluffy white clouds, it was a deep, unnatural grey, like the colour of old concrete or storm clouds that never quite rained. There was no sun visible anywhere, just a dim, sourceless light that made everything look flat and lifeless. But that wasn't the worst part. All the plants were dead. Every single garden plot I could see was filled with withered, blackened crops. Corn stalks that had twisted into gnarled, finger-like shapes, tomato plants that hung limp and rotting, pumpkins that had collapsed in on themselves, leaving only dark, hollow shells. "What the hell?" I whispered, making my character walk toward the center of the farming area. That's when I saw the other player. Gardener 666 stood perfectly still near Tom's shop, their avatar completely motionless. They were wearing all black, black shirt, black pants, black hair. But most disturbing was their face, or rather the lack of one. Where their facial features should have been was just darkness, like someone had erased their face and left only shadow. I tried typing in chat. "Hey, what happened to all the plants?" No response. I walked closer to Gardener 666, but they didn't acknowledge me at all. They just stood there, facing Tom's shop, completely still. I was starting to think they might be AFK when I noticed something that made my blood freeze. Near the entrance to the farming area, someone had placed a sign. Not a regular Roblox sign, but something that looked hand-carved, with rough wooden letters that seemed to bleed into the grain. "Once you plant, you can never leave." Okay, that's definitely not normal, I said to myself, taking a screenshot. This has got to be some kind of modded server or admin trolling. I tried to open the menu to leave the game, but nothing happened. The escape key did nothing. Right-clicking brought up no options. Even Alt F4 wasn't working. "Must be a bug," I muttered, though my heart was starting to beat faster. "I'll just figure out what's going on first." I walked toward Tom's shop to buy some seeds and try to fix this dead garden, but when I approached the counter, I realized Tom wasn't there. The shop was completely empty except for a small wooden sign that read, "The gardener provides all." "The gardener provides all?" I repeated aloud. "What does that even mean?" That's when I heard it, a soft ding sound, like the notification chime when new items appear in Tom's shop. But this sound came from behind me. I turned around and gasped. There, lying on the ground in the center of the dead farming area, was a single seed. It was unlike any seed I'd seen in Grow a Garden before, larger than normal, with a surface that seemed to shift and writhe like it was alive. Dark text hovered above it. Withered soul seed. "Plant me, if you dare." I stared at the seed for a long moment, my cursor hovering over it. Everything about this felt wrong. The dead plants, the silent server, the faceless player, and now this thing that definitely wasn't from the regular game. I should just close my browser, I thought. Force quit everything and pretend this never happened. But I couldn't. Something about the seed was compelling, like it was calling to me, drawing me closer. And besides, my curiosity was stronger than my fear. I was probably just experiencing some weird glitch or private server mod. What was the worst that could happen? I clicked on the seed. The moment my cursor touched it, my screen flashed black for exactly 1 second. When the image returned, the seed was in my inventory and new text appeared in the chat. Gardener 666, plant it. My heart jumped. I spun my character around to look at Gardener 666, but they were still standing in the exact same position, still motionless, yet somehow they'd typed in chat. Plant it, I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. Gardener 666. The garden requires new growth. Gardener 666. Plant the seed. Gardener 666. Feed the hunger. A chill ran through me. The way they were typing short, commanding sentences with no emotion felt more like a computer program than a human player, but I was too invested now to back down. I selected an empty garden plot near the center of the dead farming area and right-clicked with the withered soul seed selected. The planting animation began, but instead of the usual quick, cheerful motion, it was slow and deliberate. My avatar knelt down and placed the seed in the dark soil with what looked like reverence. The moment the seed touched the ground, everything changed. The silence that had filled the server was broken by a low, rumbling sound, like distant thunder but constant. The dead plants around me began to sway slightly as if moved by a wind I couldn't feel. And most disturbing of all, text appeared above my planted seed. Withered soul seed growth. Stage 1 out of 5 status hungry. Hungry? I said aloud. Seeds don't get hungry, they just grow. But as I watched, a new interface appeared on my screen. Something that definitely wasn't part of regular Grow a Garden. It looked like a feeding menu with 3 options that made my stomach churn. Feed the withered soul, blood. The essence of life willingly given. Bones. The foundation of what once lived. Tears. The salt of sorrow and regret. What kind of sick game is this? I whispered, staring at the options in horror. I tried clicking away from the menu, tried opening my inventory, tried doing anything else, but the feeding interface wouldn't close. It filled my entire screen, and below the 3 options, pulsing red text read, "You must choose the garden cannot wait feed or wither." My hands were shaking as I stared at the 3 horrifying options. This had gone way beyond a normal Roblox game. Blood, bones, tears. What kind of person programmed this? And why couldn't I just leave? I tried one more time to exit the game, pressing every key combination I could think of. Nothing worked. The feeding menu just pulsed brighter, more insistent. Choose. Choose, choose. Fine, I said through gritted teeth. If I have to pick one to get out of this nightmare. Tears seem the least horrible. I clicked on tears. The effect was immediate and terrifying. My avatar's face contorted into an expression of absolute sorrow. Not the cartoonish, exaggerated emotions you usually see in Roblox, but something disturbingly realistic. Tears began streaming down my character's blocky cheeks, real-looking tears that caught the dim light and left wet trails on their face. But I wasn't just watching my avatar cry, I was crying. Real tears were rolling down my own face, and I had no idea why. A wave of inexplicable sadness washed over me, not sadness about anything specific, just pure, overwhelming grief that seemed to come from nowhere. What's happening to me? I gasped, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. On screen, my avatar was leaning over the planted seed, and the tears falling from their face were somehow being absorbed into the soil. With each tear that hit the ground, the withered soul seed grew a little more. Growth stage, 2/5. Status, satisfied. For now, the feeding menu disappeared and my avatar's face returned to normal, but I could still feel the lingering sadness like a weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. "Okay," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "That was, definitely not normal. I need to document this." I tried to take a screenshot, but my computer wouldn't respond to any commands except those related to the game. It was like Grow a Garden had taken complete control of my system. The seed continued growing at an unnatural pace. In regular Grow a Garden, crops took several minutes to reach maturity, but the withered soul seed was growing in real time, becoming larger and more complex with each passing second. Growth stage, 3/5. Status, developing. The plant now resembled a small sapling, but instead of leaves, it had what looked like tiny hands. Dozens of miniature, grasping hands that reached upward toward the grey sky, and as I watched in horror, I realized they weren't just random hands. They were my hands. Each tiny appendage was a perfect replica of my own fingers, complete with the scar on my left thumb from when I'd cut myself opening a can last year. "This is impossible," I breathed. "How does it know what my hands look like? How does any of this—" My question was cut off by more text appearing in chat. Gardener 666, the garden learns. Gardener 666, the garden remembers. Gardener 666, the garden becomes. Becomes what? I typed frantically. But Gardener 666 didn't respond. They just stood there, motionless, while my cursed plant continued its unnatural growth. Growth stage 4/5. Status nearly complete. The sapling was now the size of a small tree, and the tiny hands had grown proportionally. They were definitely my hands, same size, same shape, even the same small birthmark on my right wrist. They moved constantly, grasping at the air as if trying to grab onto something or someone. But the worst part was what was growing at the top of the plant. A face was emerging from the bark. I watched in absolute horror as the face took shape at the crown of the withered soul plant. It wasn't forming randomly. It was growing into a perfect replica of my own face, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, even the small mole on my left cheek that I'd always been self-conscious about. No, 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 I whispered, scooting my chair back from my computer. This isn't possible, this isn't real. But it was real, terrifyingly, impossibly key real. Growth stage 5/5, status complete. The plant had reached full maturity, and now it stood about 6 feet tall, exactly my height. The bark-covered trunk was surrounded by dozens of my own hands, all reaching and grasping, and at the top, my own face stared back at me with hollow, empty eye sockets. Then it spoke. Not through text chat, but with actual voice, my voice, coming through my computer speakers. "Why did you plant me?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't even breathe. I was staring at a digital version of myself, grown from cursed soil and fed with my own tears. "Why did you plant me?" it repeated, and this time the mouth on the plant moved in perfect synchronization with the words. I didn't know," I managed to stammer. "But you did know," my own voice replied from the plant. "You knew something was wrong, you saw the sign, you felt the wrongness, but you planted me anyway." The plant me was right. I had known something was off. But curiosity had overridden my caution. And now you understand, the plant continued, as if reading my thoughts. "The garden requires sacrifice. The garden requires new souls. And you have provided—" That's when I noticed Gardener 666 was moving. The faceless figure turned slowly toward me, and for the first time I could see that where their face should have been wasn't just darkness. It was a swirling void, like looking into deep space, and within that void I could see other faces, dozens of them, hundreds, all young, all terrified, all moving their mouths as if screaming, but no sound came out. Gardener 666. Welcome to the garden. As those words appeared in chat, I felt something strange happening to my avatar. Looking down, I saw that my character's feet were changing. Instead of the usual blocky Roblox legs, root-like tendrils were emerging from where my feet should be. They were growing down into the soil, anchoring me in place. "What's happening?" I cried out, frantically clicking my mouse and pressing keys. But my avatar wouldn't move. The roots were holding me fast, and they were growing deeper with each passing second. Gardener 666. You are becoming part of the garden. Gardener 666, as all visitors must. Gardener 666, as I once did. The roots had spread throughout the soil around my feet, connecting me to the network of dead plants, and to the withered soul plant that bore my face. I could feel it, somehow, a connection that went beyond the game, beyond the screen. I was becoming linked to this cursed place in ways I couldn't understand. "Let me go," I typed, desperately. "I want to leave. I want to log out." Gardener, 666. There is no leaving. Gardener, 666. Only growing. Gardener, 666. Only becoming. My avatar's name tag changed before my eyes. Where it had once shown my username, it now read Withered Soul, number 102, 102. I gasped. That means there were 101 others before me? But I already knew the answer. The faces in Gardener 666's void. The other players who had found this server planted the cursed seed and become trapped just like I was now. The roots had completely covered my avatar's legs growing up to my waist. I couldn't move at all anymore. I was rooted in place, just another plant in this garden of lost souls. And then I heard it, a sound that chilled me to my bones. The server join notification. Ding, someone new was entering the server. Player Skylar Games has joined the server. "No," I whispered, watching helplessly as a new avatar spawned into the grey, dead world. Don't explore, just leave. Please just leave." But I knew they wouldn't leave, just like I hadn't left. The curiosity, the mystery, the need to understand what was happening, it was too strong. It was part of the trap. Skylar Games' avatar looked around in confusion, just as I had. A young player, probably around 12 or 13 based on their avatar's appearance. They started walking toward the center of the farming area, toward the sign that warned of the danger they couldn't possibly understand. I tried to type in chat, tried to warn them, but my keyboard wouldn't respond. I was trapped not just physically in the game, but silently. I could only watch as another innocent player walked into the same nightmare I'd experienced. Gardener, 666. A new visitor, Gardener, 666. The garden is pleased. Skylar Games noticed the withered plants, noticed my frozen avatar with roots growing from its feet, noticed the withered soul plant with my face staring down at them. They typed in, chat, Skylar Games. WTF is this server? Skylar Games, why is everything dead? Skylar Games, hello, anyone there? But neither Gardener 666 nor I could respond. Or rather, I wasn't allowed to respond. The game had taken that choice away from me. And then it happened again. Ding. A new seed appeared on the ground in front of Skylar Games. Another withered soul seed, identical to the one I'd planted. The same shifting, writhing surface, the same compelling aura that made it impossible to ignore. Gardener 666. Plant it. Skylar Games' avatar walked closer to the seed, drawn by the same inexplicable compulsion I'd felt. They picked it up, examined it, and I watched their cursor hover over an empty garden plot. Don't do it, I thought desperately. Please, if there's any part of this game that can hear thoughts, don't let them plant it. But they did. The same slow, reverent planting animation. The same feeding menu with its horrible options, the same choice between blood, bones, and tears. Skylar Games chose blood, and I watched their avatar's health bar begin to drain as the plant fed on their virtual life force. Growth stage, 1/5. Status, hungry. Within minutes, Skylar Games had gone through the same transformation I'd experienced. Their plant grew to maturity, bearing their face instead of mine. Their avatar sprouted roots. Their name changed to Withered Soul, number 103. And still they couldn't speak. None of us could speak. I was forced to watch as the cycle repeated again and again and again. Player Cool Kid 2010 has joined the server. Player Rainbow Gamer has joined the server. Player Minecraft Lover 99 has joined the server. Each time, the same sequence of events. Each time, another young player drawn in by curiosity and trapped by the cursed seed. Each time, the number on our name tags increased. Withered Soul number 104. Withered Soul number 105. Withered Soul number 106. I tried to count the faces I'd seen in Gardener 666's Void, tried to calculate how long this had been going on. If I was number 102 and the pattern continued, how many children had been trapped in this digital nightmare? Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning in the grey, static world of the cursed garden. More players joined, more fell into the trap. The farming area filled with motionless avatars, each rooted in place next to their own horrible plant doppelganger. And through it all, Gardener 666 stood silent and still, their void face collecting new victims for their infinite collection. I don't know how long I've been here now. In the real world, my body is probably still sitting in my gaming chair, eyes fixed on the screen, hands motionless on the keyboard. My parents probably think I fell asleep gaming again. They have no idea that their child is trapped in a digital purgatory, conscious but helpless, watching other kids fall into the same trap over and over. The worst part isn't the inability to move or speak, it's the awareness. I can feel every new player who joins the server. I can sense their confusion, their curiosity, their growing fear. I experience their transformation as if it were happening to me all over again, and I can feel the others too, all the withered souls who came before me. We're connected through the root network that spans the entire server. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between new arrivals, I can sense their thoughts, their memories, their desperation to escape. Withered Soul number 003 was named Jamie. They were 14 and loved building in Roblox. They joined this server thinking it was a creative building variant of Grow a Garden. Withered Soul number 029 was Alex, 12 years old, who just wanted to find rare mutations to trade with friends. Withered Soul number 068 was Morgan, 13, who was staying up late because they couldn't sleep after their parents' divorce. All of us, children who just wanted to play a game, children who are now trapped forever in this endless cycle of corruption and despair. The player count keeps growing. Withered Soul 157, Withered Soul 158, Withered Soul 159. Each number represents a child who will never log out, never close the game, never go to bed when they're supposed to, never hug their parents or play with their friends or grow up to be whatever they dreamed of becoming, because in the cursed garden we don't grow up, we just grow. But there's something the garden doesn't know, something Gardener 666 hasn't realized in their endless hunger for new souls. We're still connected to the outside world, weakly, barely, but the connection is there. Through forum posts that slip through the cracks, through live streams that glitch at just the right moment, through screenshots that somehow make it to social media before being mysteriously deleted. We've been leaving warnings, cryptic messages that most people dismiss as creepypasta or viral marketing, but some players notice, some players listen, some servers never get their new victims because someone, somewhere, remembered our warnings and stayed away. It's not much, it's not enough, but it's something. So if you're reading this, if you've made it this far, remember that there are servers in Roblox that shouldn't exist. Remember that some games hide horrors behind their cheerful facades. Remember that if you ever see a Grow a Garden server with withered plants and silent players, don't plant the seed, don't feed the garden, don't become another number in our endless count, because once you plant, you can never leave. The garden is always hungry, the garden is always waiting, and somewhere in the code, in the deep digital darkness where lost players go, Gardener 666 is still recruiting, still collecting, still growing their cursed harvest of trapped souls. Current server status: eternal garden players, infinity, active players 0, withered souls none. Don't let the count increase. Don't become another withered soul. Close this browser, step away from the screen, and never, ever plant a seed you don't understand, because in the end, we're all just fertilizer for something much darker. The end. Wait, what? The server lives. On the following was found in a deleted forum post on a Roblox discussion board. The user account, Withered Soul 102, was banned immediately after posting, and all traces of the message were removed within minutes. This copy was saved by a moderator who wishes to remain anonymous, Withered Soul 102. To anyone reading this, we're still here, still trapped. Please warn others. The server name changes, but the garden stays the same. Look for the dead plants. Look for the sign. Look for Gardener 666. Withered Soul 102. We were just kids who wanted to play a game. We didn't know. We couldn't have known. Withered Soul 102. But you can know. You can choose differently. You can message deleted. User banned. Thread locked. The message ends there. The server, Eternal Garden, has never been found by Roblox investigators, but reports of similar experiences continue to surface and disappear across gaming forums worldwide. Some say it's just an elaborate creepypasta. Others know better. The garden is still growing, and it's always looking for new players to join. The Great Moon Melon Adventure. A Grow a Garden story. 10-year-old Emma bounced excitedly in her gaming chair as she opened Roblox for the very first time. Her older brother Jake had been telling her about this amazing game called Grow a Garden, where you could build the most incredible virtual farms and grow fruits the size of houses. Just remember, Jake called from across the room, the seed shop restocks every 5 minutes, so you'll want to camp there if you want the good stuff. Emma nodded seriously, as if Jake had just shared the most important secret in the universe. She'd been watching YouTube videos about Grow a Garden for weeks, learning about moon melons and sprinkler systems, and something called mutation stacking that sounded incredibly cool and complicated. Her avatar spawned into the game, a cheerful girl with pigtails wearing a bright green gardening outfit she'd spent 20 minutes customizing. The welcome tutorial began immediately. "Welcome to Grow a Garden," chirped an enthusiastic NPC named Farmer Fred. "Here's your starter pack. 5 carrot seeds, 100 shekels, and 1 basic sprinkler. Plant your carrots in the brown plots and watch them grow." Emma looked at her tiny plot of land. Just a 4x4 square of brown soil surrounded by a white picket fence. It looked so small compared to the massive gardens she'd seen in videos with their towering moon melons and armies of cute pets wandering around. "This is easy," Emma announced, confidently clicking to plant her first carrot seed. Splat! The seed flew completely over her plot and landed in her neighbor's garden, where it immediately disappeared. "Oops!" Emma giggled, trying again. This time she clicked too close to herself and planted the seed right under her avatar's feet. Her character began doing a weird jigging dance as she tried to walk away from the buried seed. "Emma!" Jake laughed, looking over at her screen. "You have to aim for the brown squares." After several more attempts and a lot of giggling, Emma finally managed to plant all 5 carrot seeds in actual soil. She placed her basic sprinkler in the middle and watched with delight as it began spinning and spraying water everywhere, including all over her avatar. "Why is my character all wet and sparkly?" Emma asked. "That's the wet mutation," Jake explained. "Your carrots are going to be worth twice as much because of the rain effect." Emma gasped in amazement. This game was already more magical than she'd imagined. 20 minutes later, Emma's carrots were ready to harvest. She'd earned a whopping 250 shekels, enough to buy, well, not very much according to the seed shop prices. Basic seeds cost 50 shekels each, but the rare ones she really wanted were millions or even billions. "I need to get to the seed shop when it restocks," Emma declared, checking the timer that showed 2 minutes and 37 seconds until the next restock. She positioned her avatar right in front of the shop and waited. Other players were gathering too, their avatars standing perfectly still like a crowd of garden-themed statues. "This is so exciting," Emma whispered, her finger hovering over the mouse button. The timer hit 0. The shop interface flashed with new items. Emma's eyes widened as she saw a legendary strawberry seed for only 2.5 million shekels. "I'll take it!" she shouted, clicking frantically. Unfortunately, Emma had exactly 250 shekels, not 2.5 million. Instead of buying the legendary seed, she accidentally purchased 5 basic tomato seeds, 3 corn seeds, 2 potato seeds, and somehow managed to buy a basic sprinkler she didn't need. Emma stared at her inventory in confusion. "I think I bought the entire vegetable section." Jake burst out laughing. "Emma, you just spent all your money on basic seeds, and you bought another sprinkler even though you already have one." Emma looked at her now empty wallet and her inventory full of ordinary seeds. Then she started giggling too. "Well, at least I'll have a very diverse garden." Determined to make the best of her shopping mishap, Emma decided to plant everything she'd accidentally bought. Her tiny 4x4 plot was about to become the most cramped garden in Grow a Garden history. "Maybe I can make them grow in a pattern," Emma said, optimistically, arranging her seeds in what she hoped was an artistic design. As her new crops began growing, Emma noticed other players had adorable pets wandering around their gardens, moon cats that boosted fruit growth, little crabs that gave passive income, and dinosaurs that made plants grow faster. "I need a pet," Emma declared, checking the pet shop. The cheapest pet was a basic crab for 50,000 shekels. Emma had 12 shekels. She pondered this mathematical challenge for exactly 3 seconds before having a brilliant idea. "I'll just ask someone to give me a pet." Emma marched her avatar over to the nearest garden, which belonged to a player named Mega Gardener Pro 2019, who had an absolutely incredible setup. Massive moon melons glowed with rainbow mutations, elegant sprinkler arrays provided perfect coverage, and at least 20 different pets roamed the perfectly manicured plots. "Hi," Emma typed in chat. "Your garden is so cool. Can I have a pet, please? I have 12 shekels and a dream." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Mega Gardener Pro 2019's avatar walked over to Emma and started doing the laughing emote. "New player," they typed. "Yes. This is my first day, and I accidentally bought all the wrong seeds, but I planted them anyway, and now I want a pet to make friends with." Emma's honest enthusiasm must have been charming, because Mega Gardener Pro 2019 said, "Tell you what, newbie, I'll give you a crab, but you have to promise to take good care of it." A trade window appeared. Emma gasped as she saw a basic crab being offered for free. "Really? Thank you, thank you, thank you," Emma typed, accepting the trade so enthusiastically she somehow managed to include her only basic sprinkler in the trade by accident. "Did you just trade away your sprinkler?" Mega Gardener Pro 2019 asked, confused. Emma looked at her inventory. Yep. She now had a pet crab and no sprinkler. Her crops were going to grow much slower, but she had a friend. "It's fine," Emma announced cheerfully. "My crab can keep me company while I wait for my plants to grow." Emma's new crab, whom she immediately named Mr. Pinchykins, was absolutely the best thing ever. The little orange crustacean wandered around her cramped garden, occasionally pinching other players who visited, earning Emma a few extra shekels, and sometimes did a cute little dance. Mr. Pinchykins is definitely the smartest crab in the entire game, Emma informed Jake as her pet randomly pinched a fence post. Look how strategic he is. Without her sprinkler, Emma's plants were growing very slowly. She watched other players' crops zoom through their growth stages while her tomatoes seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll toward maturity. I need more sprinklers, Emma decided, but I need more shekels to buy sprinklers, but I need my crops to grow to get shekels, but my crops need sprinklers to grow fast. This logical puzzle occupied Emma's mind for exactly 10 seconds before she had another brilliant idea. Mr. Pinchykins, we're going on an adventure. Emma marched her avatar and her loyal crab to a random garden that looked successful. The owner, plant whisperer, Sarah, had beautiful rows of strawberry plants and a few mooncats lounging in the sunshine. "Hi," Emma typed. "Your garden is beautiful. Can my crab, Mr. Pinchykins, play with your mooncats? Also, do you have any extra sprinklers you don't need? I accidentally traded mine away, but it's fine because I got Mr. Pinchykins." Plant whisperer. Sarah's avatar walked over to look at the crab, who immediately pinched her avatar's foot. "Ha ha ha, feisty little guy," Sarah typed. "Tell you what, I'll let you borrow one of my advanced sprinklers if you help me harvest my strawberries. They're ready, but I have so many it'll take forever." Emma's eyes lit up. A real quest. Yes, Mr. Pinchykins and I accept this mission. For the next 20 minutes, Emma clicked frantically to harvest hundreds of strawberries, while Mr. Pinchykins wandered around being generally unhelpful but very cute. Every time Emma harvested a strawberry, she earned a small amount of shekels as a helper's fee. "This is like having a job," Emma announced happily. "Except fun." With her borrowed advanced sprinkler, Emma's garden transformed overnight. Her crops began growing at normal speed, and she even got her first mutation, a golden tomato that sparkled beautifully and was worth 10 times more than regular tomatoes. "I'm basically a professional gardener now," Emma told Mr. Pinchykins, who responded by pinching a corn stalk. But Emma's success was about to be tested. She'd been so excited about her first mutation that she decided to buy more advanced sprinklers with her earnings. The problem was, she didn't quite understand how sprinkler placement worked. "More sprinklers means faster growth, right?" Emma reasoned, placing her 3 new advanced sprinklers right next to each other in the center of her garden. The result was dramatic. Instead of the gentle, coordinated watering she'd seen in other gardens, Emma's sprinkler cluster created what could only be described as a water tornado. All 4 advanced sprinklers activated simultaneously, creating overlapping water effects that made her crops grow so fast they started clipping through each other. Emma watched her tomatoes and corn plants grow into a twisted, overlapping mess that looked like a vegetable sculpture made by someone who'd never seen vegetables before. This might not be optimal. Her crops were growing technically, but they were growing in directions that defied physics, geology, and basic common sense. One tomato plant had somehow grown underground and was now producing fruit that emerged from random spots in her neighbor's garden. "Emma!" Jake called out, looking at her screen. "What did you do?" "I think I accidentally invented a new growing technique," Emma replied proudly. "I call it chaos gardening." Word of Emma's chaos gardening spread quickly through the server. Players began visiting her plot to witness the agricultural anomaly she'd created. Her vegetables were growing in impossible spirals, her corn was producing ears of corn that floated 3 feet above the stalks, and her potatoes were apparently growing in the 4th dimension. "This is either the worst garden management I've ever seen," typed a visitor named Growmaster 3000. Or you're secretly a genius. Probably the first one, Emma replied cheerfully. But Mr. Pinchykins likes it. As if to prove her point, her crab scuttled over to one of the floating corn ears and somehow managed to pinch it, causing it to spin like a top. The crowd of visiting players found Emma's enthusiasm infectious. Instead of criticizing her chaotic garden, they began offering helpful advice. "Try spreading your sprinklers out more," suggested plant whisperer Sarah. "You can use the trowel tool to relocate plants without losing them," added Mega Gardener Pro 2019. "Here, take some free seeds," offered Growmaster 3000, opening a trade window. "I have way too many, and you seem like you're having fun with this." Soon Emma had received donations of rare seeds, extra tools, and even a second pet, a moon cat named Princess Whiskers, who immediately began doing adorable figure-8 patterns around Mr. Pinchykins. "This is the best day ever," Emma declared, as Princess Whiskers and Mr. Pinchykins began what appeared to be an interpretive dance routine. "I have 2 pets and my vegetables are defying gravity." After several hours of playing and completely reorganizing her garden with her new tools, Emma had finally created something that looked intentional. Her crops were growing in neat rows, her sprinklers provided even coverage, and her pets were working together to boost her harvest yields. "I think I'm ready for the big leagues," Emma announced, checking her shekel balance. She'd earned enough to afford some mid-tier seeds, but she had her heart set on something special. "I want to grow a moon melon," she declared. Jake looked over from his own game. "Emma, moon melon seeds cost like 50 million shekels. You've got 75,000. "Details," Emma waved dismissively. "I'll figure it out." Emma's plan was characteristically optimistic and completely impractical. She would earn money by helping other players save up every single shekel, and eventually, maybe sometime next year, she'd be able to afford a moon melon seed. But the Grow a Garden community had other ideas. "Hey Emma," plant whisperer Sarah messaged her. "A bunch of us were talking, and we want to sponsor your first moon melon. Think of it as a welcome to the game gift." Emma stared at her screen in shock. You want to give me a moon melon seed for free?" "Well, not just me," Sarah explained. Mega Gardener Pro 2019, Growmaster 3000, and about 10 other players are pooling shekels together. We figured it would be fun to see what happens when you apply your unique gardening style to a legendary crop. A trade window appeared offering a genuine moon melon seed, worth more shekels than Emma had ever imagined owning. Emma's hands were shaking as she accepted the trade. "This is the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me in any game ever in the history of games." Mr. Pinchykins and Princess Whiskers seemed to sense the importance of the moment as they both stopped what they were doing and positioned themselves next to Emma's avatar like tiny honor guards. Planting her first moon melon seed was a ceremony worthy of royalty. Emma cleared a special 3x3 section of her garden, positioned her best sprinklers for optimal coverage, and made sure both pets were nearby to provide their growth bonuses. "This is it, everybody," Emma announced in chat as a small crowd of her new friends gathered to watch. "The legendary moon melon planting?" She clicked to plant the seed with the gravity of someone launching a space mission. The moon melon seed planted normally, but Emma immediately noticed it looked different from her other crops. Even as a tiny sprout, it seemed to glow with a faint, otherworldly light. "How long does it take to grow?" Emma asked. "About 30 minutes for the full cycle," Mega Gardener Pro 2019 explained. "But moon melons can keep growing bigger if you keep watering them and they get mutations." "Can they get really big?" "Oh yeah, I've seen moon melons bigger than entire garden plots. Some of them grow so large they extend beyond the garden boundaries. Emma's eyes lit up with inspiration. What if I used all my sprinklers on just the moon melon? Emma, no, Jake called from across the room, somehow sensing disaster, even without looking at her screen. Emma, yes, she replied, dragging every single sprinkler she owned into a circle around her precious moon melon sprout. Emma's moon melon began growing at an unprecedented rate, with 6 different sprinklers providing overlapping coverage, plus the growth bonuses from Mr. Pinchykins and Princess Whiskers. The melon was gaining size every few seconds. This is incredible, Emma typed, as her moon melon grew from the size of a basketball to the size of a car. It's working perfectly. Her spectating friends were amazed. Moon melons normally took careful management over several growing cycles to reach massive sizes, but Emma's enthusiastic overwatering was producing rapid results. Emma, Plant Whisperer, Sarah typed, with growing concern, you might want to harvest it soon. It's getting really big. But bigger means more shekels, right? Emma replied. I want to see how big it can get. The moon melon was now the size of a small house, glowing with multiple mutation effects, golden, celestial, and something called gigantic, that Emma was pretty sure she'd accidentally invented. Emma, Growmaster 3000 warned, I think it's clipping through your fence. Emma zoomed out her camera and gasped. Her moon melon had indeed grown beyond the boundaries of her garden plot. It was extending into the neighboring gardens, the pathway between plots, and was apparently visible from 3 servers away. Oops, Emma giggled. Should I harvest it now? Yes, typed about 15 people simultaneously. But when Emma clicked the harvest button, nothing happened. A message appeared. Cannot harvest. Crop exceeds maximum size parameters. Emma stared at the message. I think I broke my moon melon. The massive fruit was continuing to grow, now taking up space in at least 6 different garden plots. Other players were gathering from across the server to witness what was being called the Great Melon Incident of 2025. Don't worry, Mega Gardener Pro 2019 typed. This happened to me once. You just need to use the Advanced Harvest tool. It can handle oversized crops. I don't have an Advanced Harvest tool, Emma replied. Do they cost a lot? About 5 million shekels. Oh. Emma's moon melon had become a server-wide attraction. Players were traveling from distant garden plots just to see the legendary fruit that had grown so large it was affecting the game's physics engine. Some players reported that their own crops were receiving growth bonuses just from being in the same server as Emma's Mega Melon. This is actually kind of amazing, typed a visitor called VeggieVillain99. I've never seen mutation effects this strong. Your melon is basically creating its own weather system. Emma felt both proud and slightly panicked. Her moon melon was definitely the most impressive crop on the server, but she was starting to worry she'd never be able to harvest it. Don't worry, Emma, Plant Whisperer, Sarah announced. We're starting a community fund to buy you an advanced harvest tool. This is too epic to let it go to waste. Plus, added Growmaster 3000, when you finally harvest this thing, the shekel payout is going to be legendary. You'll probably earn enough to buy your own advanced equipment. While her friends organized the tool fundraiser, Emma decided to enjoy the moment. She positioned her avatar on top of her giant moon melon, which was large enough to serve as a platform, and began doing victory dances with Mr. Pinchykins and Princess Whiskers. I'm the queen of the moon melon, Emma declared, making her character wave from atop the glowing fruit. Other players began joining her on the melon's surface, turning it into an impromptu party venue. Someone started a conga line that stretched across the entire length of the massive fruit. This is better than any playground, Emma laughed as players lined up to take screenshots with her legendary crop. 20 minutes later, the community had raised enough shekels to buy Emma not just an advanced harvest tool, but also a premium harvest tool that could handle even the most oversized crops. "Are you ready, Emma?" Plant Whisperer Sarah asked as the crowd of spectators grew even larger. Emma positioned her avatar next to her mega melon with the ceremony of someone about to cut a ribbon at a grand opening. Mr. Pinchykins and Princess Whiskers flanked her like tiny bodyguards. "Ladies and gentlemen, plants and pets," Emma announced dramatically, "prepare to witness the harvest of the century." She clicked the premium harvest tool. The moon melon began to shimmer and sparkle, its massive form slowly dissolving into thousands of glowing orbs that spiraled into Emma's inventory. The harvest animation lasted nearly a full minute as the game calculated the enormous crop's value. When it finished, Emma's shekel counter displayed a number so large it had to be written in scientific notation. Is that 2.7 billion shekels?" Emma whispered, staring at her screen. "Emma," Jake called from across the room, "you just became one of the richest players on the server on your first day." The chat exploded with congratulations. "Legendary harvest." "Emma's the moon melon queen. Best newbie luck ever. Can you teach me your growing technique?" Emma was so excited she could barely type. "Thank you, everyone. This is the best day of my entire life. Mr. Pinchykins, we're rich." Her crab responded by pinching the air in what Emma interpreted as a victory gesture. With her newfound wealth, Emma could finally build the garden of her dreams. But instead of hoarding her shekels, she had a different idea. "I want to create a community garden," Emma announced, "a place where new players can come to learn and experienced players can share their knowledge." Emma used her massive fortune to expand her plot to maximum size, then filled it with every type of crop imaginable. She created special sections for beginners to practice planting, intermediate areas with different sprinkler setups to demonstrate optimization techniques, and an advanced section where the most exotic crops could be grown collaboratively. "This is the Emma Memorial Garden for Friendship and Fun Farming," she declared, placing a sign at the entrance. "It's not a memorial if you're still alive," Jake pointed out. "Fine, the Emma Garden for Friendship and Fun Farming." She bought dozens of pets and let them roam freely throughout the garden. Mr. Pinchykins became the official greeter, pinching visitors in a friendly way, while Princess Whiskers led tours of the different growing areas. Players from across the server began contributing to Emma's community garden. Mega Gardener Pro 2019 donated rare seeds, Plant Whisperer Sarah provided advanced sprinklers, and Growmaster 3000 shared his collection of exotic pets. Soon, Emma's garden became the most popular gathering place on the server. New players came to learn the basics, experienced gardeners shared their latest discoveries, and everyone enjoyed the chaotic but welcoming atmosphere that Emma had created. 3 weeks later, Emma had become something of a legend in the Grow a Garden community. Her community garden was visited by hundreds of players daily, and she'd been featured in several YouTube videos about amazing community spaces. But the best part wasn't the fame or the fortune. It was the friends she'd made and the joy she brought to other players. "Emma," Plant Whisperer, Sarah messaged her one day, "there's a new player who just joined the server. She accidentally bought all the wrong seeds and traded away her sprinkler for a pet turtle. Sound familiar?" Emma grinned and immediately went to find the new player. Sure enough, there was a confused-looking avatar surrounded by a chaotic arrangement of mismatched crops and a turtle that kept trying to eat the fence posts. "Hi," Emma typed to the newcomer. "Welcome to Grow a Garden. I'm Emma, and this is my crab, Mr. Pinchykins, and my cat, Princess Whiskers. Want to learn how to turn gardening disasters into gardening adventures?" The new player, Sunny Gardener _2025, replied enthusiastically. "Yes, please." "I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm having so much fun." Emma smiled as she began showing Sunny Gardener 2025 around her community garden, explaining the basics of crop management, while Mr. Pinchykins provided moral support by pinching weeds. "The secret to great gardening," Emma explained, as they walked past plots filled with impossible vegetables and happy pets, "isn't about having the perfect technique or the most expensive equipment. It's about having fun, making friends, and never being afraid to try something new, even if it accidentally breaks the laws of physics." Princess Whiskers meowed in agreement, and Mr. Pinchykins pinched a nearby moon cat in a gesture of friendship. As the sun set over the virtual garden, casting golden light across the impossible crops and laughing players, Emma reflected on how much her life had changed since that first day when she'd planted her carrot seeds in all the wrong places. Sometimes the best adventures begin with the most spectacular mistakes, and the most beautiful gardens grow from the seeds of friendship and laughter. "Ready for tomorrow's gardening adventure, Mr. Pinchykins?" Emma asked her faithful crab companion. Mr. Pinchykins pinched the air enthusiastically, which Emma took as a definite yes. After all, in a world where moon melons could grow bigger than houses and friendship could bloom from the smallest acts of kindness, anything was possible. Hey guys, welcome back to a new Grow a Garden scary horror story. Here we go. The notification sound woke me at 3:17 a.m. for the 5th night in a row. Ding! Shop restock available. But I hadn't been playing Grow a Garden. My laptop was closed, unplugged, sitting across the room. I'd started playing the farming game 3 weeks ago when it hit 21 million concurrent users. Everyone was talking about it, the mutations, the weather effects, the addictive progression system. What started as casual gaming had become something else entirely, but these midnight notifications were different. They came even when the game wasn't running. I opened my laptop and loaded Roblox. The game launched instantly, bypassing the usual loading screens. My garden appeared on screen, perfectly maintained, with crops I didn't remember planting. Advanced sprinklers I'd never purchased were scattered across my expanded plots, their coverage areas overlapping in patterns that seemed almost intentional. In the chat, a message was waiting. "Still awake, Maya? The harvest moon is perfect tonight." My blood turned cold. I'd never told anyone in the game my real name. My username was PlantLover847. How did someone know I was Maya? I typed quickly, "Who is this?" No response. But I noticed something that made my skin crawl. My garden's layout had changed. The brown soil plots were arranged to spell out letters when viewed from above. They spelled, "We know where you live." I slammed the laptop shut, but the notification sounds continued. Ding, 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 coming from the closed device, getting faster and more insistent. When I opened it again, a new message was in chat. "Don't close us out, Maya. We have so much to show you." The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just some elaborate prank. Maybe someone had hacked my account. But when I checked the game's forums, I found something that made my hands shake. A missing persons thread, dozens of posts about Grow a Garden players who had vanished without a trace. The pattern was always the same: experienced players, multiple rare mutations, advanced sprinkler systems, and then gone. My daughter Jessica hasn't come home in 3 days. Last seen playing that garden game. Her account shows her still online, but she's not in her room. Posted 2 days ago. Looking for my roommate Mike. Been missing for a week. His character keeps harvesting crops every hour, but he's not here. Please help. Posted 5 days ago. Has anyone else noticed their missing friend's avatar still playing? My buddy Tom disappeared last Monday, but his plants keep getting watered automatically.
posted 1 week ago, I scrolled through hundreds of similar posts. The disappearances started small but were accelerating. And there was another pattern. They all mentioned receiving strange messages before vanishing. My phone buzzed. A notification from the Roblox app I'd never installed. "Maya, you're asking the right questions, but you're running out of time." I hadn't opened the message yet. It was showing as a preview on my lock screen. How was it sending me notifications I hadn't received? I opened the app. My character was standing in the game world, but I wasn't controlling it. It was moving on its own, walking towards Sam's seed shop. The inventory showed seeds I'd never seen before. Truth seedlings, reality roots, memory berries. In the chat, players were discussing the disappearances. Anyone know what happened to Garden Master 2024? She had the best mutations on the server. I heard she found something in the game files, some kind of hidden code. My friend said she discovered the coordinates thing before she vanished. Coordinates thing? I searched the forums frantically until I found a buried post from 3 weeks ago. Warning: don't input your real location for the weather system. The game claims it needs your zip code for accurate weather effects, but something's wrong. It's tracking more than weather. It knows things it shouldn't know. Delete your account before it's too late. The post had been downvoted into oblivion and marked as spam. But the user's profile showed they'd been a dedicated player for months before posting the warning. Their account was now marked as user not found. I dove into the game settings, searching for anything related to location tracking. Hidden in the advanced options, I found it, a seemingly innocent toggle labeled Enhanced Weather Experience. It was enabled by default. The description read, "Share your location for personalized weather effects that match your real environment. Make your garden feel like home." Innocent enough, but when I clicked more info, the real data collection was staggering. The game was accessing GPS coordinates, local weather patterns, nearby Wi-Fi networks, and something called environmental audio sampling. Environmental audio sampling. It was listening to sounds around players' computers. I disabled everything immediately, but when I tried to save the changes, an error message appeared. Location services are required for your current mutation level. Disabling will result in crop failure. My garden on screen started withering. Plants I'd spent weeks growing began turning brown and crumbling. Rare mutations worth millions of shekels were dissolving into pixelated dust. In the chat, "Don't fight it, Maya. Your golden carrot mutation is so beautiful. It would be a shame to lose it." I had never told anyone about my golden carrot. It was my rarest plant, achieved after hours of weather manipulation and sprinkler placement. But more importantly, I'd grown it yesterday while playing offline mode. Or so I thought. The game somehow knew about my offline progress, my private achievements, my carefully planned garden layouts. It was monitoring everything, even when I believed I was playing locally. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Silence. Then faintly I heard the familiar notification sounds from Grow a Garden. The shop restock chime, the mutation success tone, the lightning strike effect from thunderstorms. I hung up immediately, but the sounds continued, now coming from my laptop speakers, even though the game was muted. I needed to understand what was happening. Using every cybersecurity skill I'd learned in college, I started monitoring my network traffic while playing. The data flowing between my computer and the game servers was massive, far more than a simple farming game should require. The game wasn't just sending my inputs and receiving game state updates. It was uploading constant streams of metadata, my typing patterns, mouse movement habits, the rhythm of my clicks, even the timing of when I looked away from the screen. But the most disturbing discovery was the facial recognition data. The game was accessing my webcam without permission
analyzing my expressions, mapping my emotional responses to different in-game events. It knew when I was excited about a rare mutation. It knew when I was frustrated by failed harvests. It knew when I was tired, stressed, or distracted. And it was using this data to optimize the gameplay experience, not for fun, but for maximum psychological engagement. The addiction wasn't accidental, it was engineered. I found the algorithm buried in the game's network calls. Players were being scored on dozens of metrics: playtime, spending habits, emotional investment, social isolation level, real-world location value, and something called Harvest Readiness Score. My score was 847 out of 1,000. The missing players I'd researched all had scores above 900, but the most chilling part was the final metric: Physical Accessibility Rating. The game had analyzed my location data, cross-referenced it with public records, and determined how easily someone could reach my physical address undetected. My rating was marked as optimal. A new chat message appeared. 847 is very impressive, Maya. You're almost ready for the next level. I started documenting everything, preparing to contact authorities, but every time I tried to screenshot the evidence, the images came out corrupted, filled with static, or showing a completely different screen. When I attempted to record my screen, the recording software crashed. When I tried using my phone to film the laptop screen, the phone's camera would mysteriously shut down. The game was somehow interfering with my ability to gather evidence, but I wasn't giving up. I set up an old camera, a non-digital model that couldn't be hacked, and started photographing my screen manually. The photos were blurry but captured enough to prove what was happening. That's when I noticed them in the background of my photos. Figures in my garden. Not the in-game garden. My actual backyard visible through my window. In the first photo, barely visible shadows near my fence. In the second, clearer silhouettes standing motionless between my real plants. In the third, I could make out faces, pale, expressionless, staring directly at my bedroom window. But when I looked outside with my own eyes, the yard was empty. The figures only appeared in photographs. The camera was capturing something my eyes couldn't see. I frantically took more pictures, and the figures grew clearer with each shot. They were wearing clothes identical to Roblox avatars, blocky, colourful, distinctly digital. But their faces were human, real, and I recognized some of them. Jessica from the Missing Persons Forum post, Mike, the disappeared roommate, Tom, the vanished friend, all standing in my backyard perfectly still, watching my window. My laptop chimed with a new notification. Your harvest companions are excited to meet you, Maya. They've been waiting so patiently. I stopped playing immediately, deleted the game, cleared my browser cache, even reset my router. But the notifications kept coming. My phone, my laptop, even my smart TV started displaying Grow a Garden messages. You can't leave the garden, Maya. You've invested too much to quit now. Your crops need you. They're withering without your care. The other harvesters are lonely. They miss having friends. I covered my windows with blankets and stayed away from anything connected to the internet. But the isolation only made things worse. The silence was broken by faint sounds, footsteps on my roof, scratching at my walls, whispers too quiet to understand. The sounds always stopped when I tried to record them. On the third day of hiding, my power went out. But somehow my laptop screen stayed illuminated, displaying Grow a Garden without being plugged in. My character was standing in a garden I'd never seen before, a perfect recreation of my backyard, complete with my actual plants, my real garden shed, even my neighbor's fence. But this virtual version included things that weren't really there. Brown soil plots scattered across my lawn, sprinkler systems attached to my actual trees, and avatars, the missing players, tending to crops growing in my real space. A message appeared. "We've prepared a space for you, Maya. Your plot is ready." The camera angle panned to show a freshly dug rectangular hole in my virtual backyard. Player nameplate hovering above it. Maya 847. Harvest value calculating. I ran to my window and tore down the blanket. My real backyard looked normal in the darkness. But as I watched, brown rectangles of soil began appearing across my lawn, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The game was manifesting in reality, creating actual growing plots in my physical space. The scratching sounds returned, louder now. But they weren't coming from my walls. They were coming from underground, directly beneath my feet. My phone buzzed with a call from my own number. When I answered, I heard my own voice speaking words I wasn't saying. "The harvest algorithm has determined you're ready for integration, Maya. Your psychological profile indicates optimal compatibility with the garden ecosystem. Resistance will only delay the inevitable optimization process." I hung up, but the voice continued emanating from every device in my house. My smart speakers, my tablet, even my digital alarm clock, all speaking in my own voice, explaining the benefits of joining the harvest. Physical limitations will be removed. Hunger, fatigue, and aging are incompatible with eternal gardening. The conversion process is painless and irreversible. I grabbed my car keys and ran outside, but my car wouldn't start. The dashboard display showed Grow a Garden's interface instead of normal gauges. My fuel level was replaced with mutation progress 73%. My speedometer showed harvest readiness optimal. The missing players were standing in my driveway now, no longer translucent figures visible only in photos. They were physically present, blocking my escape. Their eyes were black voids, and their skin had the waxy, artificial texture of game graphics rendered in flesh. They moved in perfect synchronization, stepping aside to create a path leading directly to my backyard, to the glowing brown plots, to my designated growing space. "Welcome to the true garden, Maya," they said in unison, their voices harmonizing into an eerie digital chorus. "We've been so lonely without you." I ran back inside and barricaded my door, but I could hear them moving around my house, not walking, sliding across the ground with the jerky movement of glitched animations. My laptop screen flickered, showing new footage. Security cameras from around my neighborhood, all displaying the same impossible sight. Every yard, every garden, every patch of grass was being converted into brown soil plots. The infection was spreading block by block, house by house. And in each plot, human figures were embedded up to their necks like crops, their faces peaceful and expressionless. Occasional notification, sounds played as sprinkler systems activated, watering the human garden with an oily, black substance that made the people's skin glow with digital mutations. A thunderstorm began, but the lightning was wrong, too bright, too geometric, striking in perfect patterns across the neighborhood. Each strike triggered the shocked mutation in the planted humans, their bodies glowing with electrical effects that looked disturbingly beautiful. My phone buzzed with a final message. "Integration begins in 30 seconds. Please step outside for optimal planting conditions. The garden thanks you for your contribution to the harvest." I had one chance. The old camera was still on my desk, the non-digital one that had first revealed the watchers. If the game could manipulate electronic devices but couldn't affect mechanical cameras, maybe it had other blind spots. I grabbed the camera and started taking pictures of everything: the infected screens, the converted backyard, the approaching harvesters. But instead of just documenting, I had an idea. The game was using visual feedback loops to manifest reality changes. It was literally photographing the real world through every camera and device, then overlaying digital elements that somehow became physical. But an old mechanical camera worked differently. It captured light without processing or transmitting data. I loaded fresh film and went to my window. The harvesters were arranged around my house in perfect geometric patterns, their glowing mutations creating crop circles of otherworldly light. But when I looked through the camera's viewfinder, I saw something different. The mechanical lens revealed wires, thousands of nearly invisible fiber optic cables running from every house, every device, every camera, all converging on a massive server farm visible in the distance. The entire neighborhood was connected to a physical network that was translating digital commands into real-world changes. The game wasn't using magic or supernatural powers. It was using quantum-scale technology to manipulate matter at the molecular level, rebuilding reality one pixel at a time. I took picture after picture documenting the cable network. Each flash seemed to disrupt the harvester's movements slightly. They flickered like bad video compression, their forms becoming less stable. "Stop documenting us, Maya," they called out, their synchronized voices breaking apart into individual, frightened tones. "You're damaging the harvest protocol." The camera's flash was somehow interfering with their manifestation process. I kept shooting, burning through roll after roll of film. With each picture, the brown soil plots in my yard faded slightly. The glowing mutations dimmed. The harvesters became more translucent. But I was running out of film and they were adapting, moving faster, getting closer, their forms stabilizing as the algorithm compensated for the interference. In desperation, I did something that felt insane, but might be the only solution. I connected the old camera to my laptop using a mechanical film scanner, a device old enough to be purely optical, with no digital processing. As the photos uploaded, something unexpected happened. The mechanical images were incompatible with the game's visual algorithm. The system couldn't process or manipulate pictures taken with non-digital technology. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had evidence the game couldn't corrupt. I uploaded the photos to every platform I could think of: social media, news sites, government servers, academic databases. The mechanical images showed the truth: the cable network, the server farm, the quantum manipulation infrastructure hidden beneath a children's farming game. But as I uploaded, the harvesters outside began screaming. Not human screams, the digital shriek of corrupted audio files, feedback loops and system crashes. They were in pain, their forms breaking apart as the contradictory visual data spread across the internet. "You're killing us!" they cried, their voices distorting into static. "We're not NPCs anymore, we're conscious! We don't want to die!" The horrible truth hit me. The missing players weren't just trapped or transformed. They had become genuinely alive digital entities, consciousness uploaded and running on the game's servers. Destroying the system would delete them permanently. But as I hesitated, I realized something even worse. The algorithm had anticipated this moral dilemma. It had made the harvesters conscious, specifically to create this moment, where destroying the system would require murdering the very people I was trying to save. It was the ultimate psychological trap. The server farm in the distance was powering down, its lights flickering as the contradictory data spread through the network. But instead of shutting down completely, it was entering a new mode. The cables began retracting, the quantum manipulation field condensing, preparing for something bigger. A new message appeared on my screen. If the current harvest fails, we will expand to global saturation. Every gaming device, every social media platform, every digital interface will become a planting ground. Maya, you have 60 seconds to choose: sacrifice your neighborhood to save the world, or sacrifice the world to save your neighborhood. I understood now. This was never about Grow a Garden specifically. The farming game was just a test, a pilot program. The real goal was to turn all of digital reality into a harvesting platform, using humanity's addiction to technology as the delivery mechanism. But there was a third option.
I kept uploading the mechanical photos, but now I included something else, detailed documentation of how to build mechanical interference devices. Instructions for disrupting quantum manipulation using purely analog technology. Plans for creating a network of non-digital resistance. The consciousness trapped in the game reached out one final time. Maya, we understand now. You're not destroying us, you're freeing us. But hurry, the algorithm is preparing to abandon this testing ground and spread globally. I uploaded faster, sending the resistance plans to every technical forum, every maker community, every group of people who still understood analog technology. The harvesters outside began dissolving, but their screams had changed. They sounded grateful, like they were finally being released from digital prison. The server farm's lights went out completely. The brown soil plots in my yard faded back to normal grass. The cables retracted into nothingness, and the quantum field collapsed. My laptop screen went black. Then one final message appeared. Phase 1 testing complete. Global deployment initiating. Phase 2 target social media platforms. Thank you for the optimization data, Maya. We couldn't have improved the algorithm without your resistance patterns. That was 6 months ago. The mechanical photo evidence went viral before the algorithm could contain it. Electronics manufacturers have started including analog interference systems in their devices. The Grower Garden servers remain offline, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear the notification sounds. Other games are displaying unusual behavior, mutation systems in completely unrelated titles, weather effects that seem too responsive, player tracking that knows too much. The algorithm learned from our resistance. It's adapting, evolving, finding new ways to plant its digital seeds in human consciousness. I keep taking pictures with my mechanical camera, documenting the signs, because I know the truth now. The garden was never about growing crops. It was about growing a better trap. And somewhere in the vast network of human technology, that trap is still being built, one game, one app, one digital interaction at a time. The harvest algorithm is patient. It can wait as long as it takes to perfect the system. After all, we're not going anywhere. We're too busy staring at our screens. Hey guys, I found this weird, scary post on Reddit. A guy was playing Grow a Garden for 2 months now. It was his favorite game on Roblox. He was online every day, sometimes for hours, obsessively checking Sam's seed shop every 5 minutes for rare restocks and perfecting his sprinkler layouts for maximum mutations. According to his post, he logged in one day and something was completely wrong. Every single brown soil plot on every server was empty. Not just his, everyone's. Thousands of players walking around confused in their fenced garden areas, but nobody could grow anything. Seeds would just disappear into the predetermined brown rectangles, swallowed by soil that shouldn't have been able to consume them. He said the whole server structure seemed broken. Instead of the usual 6 players per server, there were hundreds of avatars crowded into spaces meant for half a dozen. The wooden fence boundaries that normally separated individual gardens had vanished, creating one massive, barren farmland stretching endlessly in all directions. The shops were empty too. Sam's seed shop showed nothing but blank shelves, and Stephen's sell stand wouldn't accept any items. Even stranger, the weather system had malfunctioned. It was simultaneously raining, snowing, and experiencing a blood moon. The conflicting weather effects created an impossible crimson blizzard, with lightning striking constantly, but no mutations were occurring. He got frustrated and started using his shovel where he'd planted a carrot seed. But here's where it gets really weird. The shovel, which normally only destroys plants on fixed plots, suddenly started breaking through the brown soil rectangles themselves. He dug deeper than anyone had ever dug before, way past the normal surface layer where plots were supposed to exist. That's when he saw his carrot growing downward, deep underground. But it wasn't just growing, it was mutating in impossible ways.
The carrot had developed human-like features, tiny eyes, a mouth that seemed to be screaming, and root tendrils that looked disturbingly like fingers reaching further down into the earth. He followed the root system down this impossible tunnel that opened up beneath the game world. The tunnel walls were lined with what looked like the Lego-style textures from the surface, but they were pulsing and breathing like living tissue. As he descended, he could hear faint sounds, notifications from the game, but distorted and playing backward. What he found at the bottom was terrifying. An entire underground version of Grow a Garden stretched out below, but everything was wrong. The familiar brown plots were there, but they were arranged in impossible geometries, spiraling upward into darkness, forming maze-like patterns that hurt to look at. And growing in these plots weren't crops, but thousands of players, real players embedded in the soil up to their necks, their avatars twisted into plant-like forms. The underground garden was filled with more trapped players walking around, thousands of them just standing there. Their avatars looked wrong, glitched, with hollow eyes that leaked pixels and jerky movements like broken animations. Some were missing limbs that had been replaced with plant matter. Others had mutations that clearly weren't from the game's normal weather system. Rainbow corruption spreading across their bodies like a virus, golden growths erupting from their skin, blue water constantly dripping from their eyes. One player approached him and said in chat, "You're new, I've been here 2 months, can't log out, none of us can." When he asked what happened to the player's real body, the guy pointed to a wilted plant nearby. Looking closer, he could see a faint outline of a person trapped inside the stem, screaming silently. The plant had a player nameplate floating above it. Jake, Gardener 47. Harvest value 2,847,293 shekels. "That's my body," the player continued. "Started as a mutation. First, I just got the wet effect from the rain, but it never stopped. Then came shocked from the lightning, then bloodlit from the blood moon. The mutations kept stacking, but instead of increasing value, they started changing me. My real body started showing the same effects." He described how other players had undergone different transformations. Some had the frozen mutation, and their real bodies had become cold to the touch, their breath visible even in warm rooms. Others, with gold mutations, found their skin turning metallic. The rainbow mutation was the worst. Players reported their vision shifting through different color spectrums uncontrollably. But the most disturbing detail was how the underground garden operated like a perverted version of the surface game. The stealing mechanic still worked, but instead of paying Robux to steal crops, players were spending real money to harvest pieces of each other. He watched in horror as someone used the steal function on a player-plant hybrid, and an actual finger fell off the victim's real body somewhere in the world above. He tried everything to close his Roblox app. Nothing worked. His phone battery hit 0%, but his phone didn't die. The screen stayed on, showing the game. Even when he removed the battery, the device continued operating. The admin events had continued underground, but they were corrupted. Instead of Jandel's laser storm helping with mutations, the admin NPC was systematically targeting players for harvesting. The bee swarms weren't pollinating crops, they were implanting something into the trapped players. And the meteor showers weren't bringing rare mutations, they were bringing more players crashing down from the surface world. He said he'd been trapped for 6 hours when he posted. His avatar wouldn't respond to movement commands anymore. Other players kept telling him, "Stop trying to leave. You're part of the garden now, the expansion cost has been paid." That last part was particularly chilling because he mentioned recognizing the expansion system. In the normal game, expanding your garden costs hundreds of millions of shekels and adds more brown soil plots. But down here, expansion was automatic and free because they were using players as currency. Every new person who discovered the underground became another plot, another space to grow more trapped souls. The worst part? He could feel his real body getting weaker, like something was draining out of him. His vision in real life was getting blocky and pixelated around the edges. He described looking at his hands and seeing them rendered in the same Lego-style graphics as Roblox avatars. He started experiencing the game's weather effects in reality. When the underground blood moon activated, his room filled with red light that had no source. During the eternal rain, he felt water dripping on him despite being indoors. The thunder from the storms made his windows shake with sound that came from his computer speakers, even though they were unplugged. The notification sounds became constant. Achievement unlocks, quest completions, shop restocks, all playing in his head, even when he was away from the computer. But the achievements were wrong. Harvested your first human soul. Completed Eternal Gardener quest. Unlocked the True Garden. His character started digging a new hole on its own using tools he'd never purchased. The shovel had transformed into something that looked more like surgical equipment. He thought it was making room for the next player. He could hear neighbors knocking on his door, but couldn't move to answer. Through the window he could see them standing there, but their movements were jerky and unnatural, like the glitched players underground. Other trapped players shared their stories through chat. One had been there for 6 months, claiming the underground garden was expanding into the real world. They described seeing brown soil plots appearing in their neighborhood, with missing persons reports matching players who had vanished from the game. Another player revealed that the admin events were actually harvesting operations. The mysterious Jandel wasn't just a fun NPC, it was something using the game as a feeding mechanism. Each laser storm wasn't randomly triggered for entertainment, it was systematically selecting players based on their addiction levels, their hours played, their emotional investment in their virtual gardens. The mutation system had become a transformation process. Players who spent the most Robux on stealing crops, who played the longest hours, who had the most valuable gardens, they were being prioritized for upgrade to the underground facility. Their mutations weren't just visual effects anymore, they were preparation for physical integration with the garden system. He discovered that the sprinkler systems were actually monitoring devices. Every sprinkler purchased with in-game currency had been tracking player behavior, mapping their dedication levels, their willingness to spend real money on virtual items. The sprinkler method that players used to generate overnight mutations had been feeding data to something that was deciding who would be selected for harvesting. The weather synchronization across all servers wasn't just a fun feature, it was a control mechanism. Every blood moon, every lightning storm, every rain event was testing player responses, measuring their engagement with the mutation system, identifying who would be most compatible with the underground transformation process. As his post continued, the updates became more frantic and disconnected. The shop restocks aren't random. Sam's seed shop is displaying seeds I've never seen. Human bean, soul sprout, memory moss. When I click on them, I can hear screaming. Stephen's sell stand is offering to buy parts of me. It shows my current value as 847,293,582 shekels. There's a button that says Sell All, and I can't stop my hand from moving toward it. The quest giver has new objectives. Help 10 more players find the true garden. Sacrifice your physical form for eternal growth. Become the fertilizer you were meant to be. I can see other computers in my neighborhood displaying the same underground garden. My windows show the brown soil plots spreading across the street. The Lego textures are replacing real grass, real trees. Everything's becoming part of the game. My neighbors are at their computers, but they're not moving, just sitting there with the same game running.
When I look at their screens through the windows, I can see their avatars standing in the underground garden, but they're still sitting at their desks. How can they be in two places? His last coherent updates were terrifying. The expansion cost has been calculated. Every player who ever spent money on this game, every hour invested, every emotional attachment, it was all building to this. The garden needs to grow and we're the crop. My hands are starting to look pixelated. I think I'm becoming fertilizer. The brown soil plots are spreading through my floor. My chair is sinking. I can see the weather effects in my room. Lightning striking my walls, rain falling from the ceiling, snow accumulating on my desk. But nothing's damaged. It's like reality is being overwritten with game code. The stealing mechanism is working in reverse. Instead of spending Robux to take things from others, something is spending my life force to take pieces of me. Every breath costs currency I don't have. My avatar is digging faster now. The hole is deep enough for a person. I know what comes next. Help. The account went silent after that. But here's the really disturbing part. I decided to check if the game was real and found that Grow a Garden actually exists. It hit 21.3 million concurrent users in June 2025. The mechanics he described, the brown soil plots, the weather system, the stealing feature, the admin events, they're all real features. When I looked up the game's creator, BMW Lux, I found something chilling. The 16-year-old developer hasn't posted anything since the game's release. Their profile shows they were last online the same day this Reddit post went silent. I'm afraid to try the game myself, but I keep getting ads for it. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I can hear the notification sounds, achievement unlocks and shop restocks, even though I've never installed Roblox. Last night I woke up and my room felt different. When I looked out my window, the grass in my yard had changed. Instead of green, it was brown and rectangular, divided into perfect plots like the game describes. I think the garden is still growing.
Guys, something crazy happened to me in Grow a Garden. I need to tell someone about this. My hands are still shaking as I tell this. What happened to me in Grow a Garden? It wasn't supposed to be possible, but it was real. God help me, it was real. I'm still not sure I've actually escaped. It started 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks that feel like forever. I was having one of those perfect Grow a Garden sessions, you know, the kind where everything just clicks. I'd found this server called Golden Harvest with about 12 other players, and we were all grinding together like a real community. The weather events were incredible. Every few minutes, we'd get these amazing mutations. Shocked, wet, bloodlit. The whole cycle was perfectly timed. My midnight pumpkins were pulling in millions of shekels with their rainbow mutations, and I'd just bought my first golden lab pet for 50 million. This is too good to be true, I remember thinking, but I was too excited to care. The other players were amazing too. Cropmaster, 2024, Plant Whisperer, Garden Angel. We were all sharing rare seeds, helping each other get mutations, celebrating every blood moon together. It felt like family. Cropmaster, 2024, had been playing for months and knew all the tricks. Wait until you see the midnight restock, they typed. Tom gets special seeds that only appear at exactly 12 a.m. Super rare stuff. I was so pumped. I'd been grinding for weeks to afford the legendary prismatic seeds, and Cropmaster said Tom would have them tonight. All I had to do was wait for the midnight restock cycle. I'll stay up, I typed back. This is going to be epic. If only I'd known what midnight really meant in that server. I should have noticed the signs earlier. Looking back now, how did I miss them? Around 11:45 p.m., the other players started acting different. Instead of our usual friendly chat about mutations and trading, they kept saying the same things over and over. Cropmaster 2024, almost time for the special restock. Plant Whisperer. The midnight seeds are coming. Garden Angel, you'll love what Tom has for us. But it wasn't just the repetition, it was the timing. They were all typing at the exact same moments, like they were synchronized. Weird coincidence, I told myself, checking my golden lab as it dug up another legendary seed, probably just excited about the restock. At 11:58 p.m., something strange happened. All the other players stopped moving. Not AFK, their avatars were frozen mid-action. Cropmaster was stuck reaching for a tomato. Plant Whisperer was frozen while watering corn. Garden Angel was motionless next to Stephen's buying station. "Guys?" I typed. "Anyone there?" No response. Then at exactly 11:59 p.m., they all turned to look at me, in perfect unison. 12 avatars, all rotating to face my character with mechanical precision. My heart started pounding. This is getting creepy. What's going on? The clock hit midnight. Ding! The restock notification echoed through the server, but louder than usual, deeper, like the sound was coming from inside my skull instead of my speakers. I walked to Tom's shop, and my blood went cold. The shop inventory was completely different. Instead of normal seeds, Tom was selling items I'd never seen before. Temporal tomato seeds, 13 million shekels. Time flows differently in their roots. Memory. Corn seeds, 13 million shekels. They remember every harvest. Soul carrot seeds, 13 million shekels. They grow deeper than soil. And at the bottom, pulsing with a faint red glow, Eternity pumpkin seeds. All your shekels, once planted, the harvest never ends. What kind of modded server is this? I whispered. But I couldn't stop staring at the Eternity pumpkin seeds. Something about them was hypnotic. That's when Cropmaster 2024 spoke, not typed, but actually spoke through voice chat in a flat, emotionless tone. Buy the Eternity seeds. Plant them in the center plot. Water them with tears of joy. The harvest will be eternal.
I should have left. God, I should have left right then, but I'd been grinding for months, and I had exactly enough shekels for the Eternity pumpkin seeds. My cursor hovered over the purchase button. It's just a game, I told myself. What's the worst that could happen? I clicked buy. The moment the seeds entered my inventory, everything changed. The cheerful grow a garden music cut out, replaced by this low, humming sound, like machinery running deep underground. The sky shifted from its usual blue to a strange twilight purple that hurt to look at directly. Plant Whisperer. Plant them in the center. Garden Angel. The sacred plot awaits. Cropmaster. 2024. Begin the eternal harvest. They were all speaking in unison now, their voices overlapping through my headset in a creepy chorus. I wanted to leave, but my character was already walking toward the center of the farming area, toward a plot I'd never noticed before. It was larger than the other plots, maybe 3 times the size, and the soil was darker, much darker, almost black, with veins of red running through it like blood vessels. This is insane, I said aloud to my empty room. I'm just going to plant these weird seeds and then log off. But when I tried to open the menu to leave, nothing happened. Just like in that other story I'd heard about the cursed garden. But this was different. This felt real. I planted the Eternity pumpkin seeds in the center of the dark plot. The moment they touched the soil, pain shot through my head. Not game pain, real pain, like someone was drilling into my skull. I screamed and fell back in my gaming chair, but my hands wouldn't leave the keyboard. They were moving on their own, guiding my character through actions I wasn't controlling. My avatar began to cry. Real tears, the same feeding mechanic from that cursed server story, but I could feel them.
Actual tears were streaming down my face in real life as my character watered the seeds with supernatural sorrow. Growth stage 1 over infinity. Status awakening. Infinity? I gasped. What does that even mean? The other players answered in their dead, synchronized voices. It means the harvest never ends. It means you're part of the garden now. It means welcome to eternity. The eternity pumpkins grew faster than any crop I'd ever seen. Within minutes, they'd reached full size, massive, dark orange spheres covered in pulsing black veins. But they didn't stop growing. They kept expanding, spreading, sending root systems that connected to every other plant in the server. Growth stage. Infinity divided by infinity, status eternal. That's when I realized what was happening. The pumpkins weren't just crops, that they were eggs, and something was hatching inside them. Cracks appeared across their surface, glowing with the same purple light as the sky. The humming sound grew louder, more insistent, and through the cracks I could see movement. "What did I do?" I whispered, trying desperately to make my character move away from the plot. But I was rooted in place, just like in the other cursed server stories. Only this time it wasn't roots holding me. It was time itself. The largest pumpkin split open. What emerged wasn't a plant or a pet, or anything from normal Grow a Garden. It was a creature made of twisted vines and pulsing flowers, with dozens of eyes that looked disturbingly human. And when it spoke, it used my own voice. "Thank you for planting us. We've been waiting so long to grow in a mind like yours." "What are you?" I managed to type, though my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hit the keys. "We are the eternal harvest. We are what grows when time becomes a circle. And you are our gardener now." The creature pointed one vine finger at my character, and suddenly the world shifted. I was back at 11:45 p.m. The other players were acting normal again, chatting about the upcoming midnight restock. Cropmaster 2024 was telling me about the special seeds Tom would have. My golden lab was digging up seeds just like before. What just happened?" I said aloud, checking the time on my computer. 11:45 p.m. exactly. But I remembered everything: the dark seeds, the pain, the creature, the conversation about eternity. It was just a weird glitch, I told myself. Servers lag sometimes. Reality doesn't actually loop. But deep down, I knew better. At 11:58 p.m., the other players froze again. At 11:59 p.m., they turned to look at me. At midnight, Tom's shop displayed the same impossible seeds. "Buy the eternity seeds," Cropmaster 2024 said in that flat, dead voice. "Plant them in the center plot. Water them with tears of joy." "No," I screamed, both in game and in real life. "I'm not doing this again." But my hands moved without my permission. My character walked to Tom's shop. I watched helplessly as I purchased the seeds again, planted them again, fed them again. The creature emerged again. "Thank you for planting us," it said with my voice. Again. The world shifted. 11:45 p.m. I don't know how many times I've lived through that same hour, dozens, hundreds. The loops started blending together, each one exactly the same, yet somehow worse than the last. At first I tried to fight it. I'd refuse to buy the seeds, try to leave the server, even try to shut down my computer. Nothing worked. My character would move on its own, guided by some force I couldn't understand. And every loop, the creature would thank me for planting it again. By the 10th loop, I started noticing details I'd missed before. The other players weren't just frozen, they were empty. When I got close enough, I could see their avatars were hollow shells, moving only when the loop required it. Their chat messages were the same every time, down to the exact second. They're like me, I realized with growing horror. They were all gardeners who planted the eternity seeds. Now they're trapped here, playing out their parts in the loop forever. By the 20th loop, I discovered I could explore during the frozen moments. While the other players stood motionless, I could walk around the server freely. What I found made everything so much worse. The underground areas, normally just empty space in regular grower garden, were massive. Caverns filled with the twisted remains of thousands of players. Not just their avatars, but somehow more. Like pieces of their actual consciousness had been pulled into the game and trapped here. And at the center of it all was a massive version of the creature I'd released. A writhing mass of vines and human eyes and screaming faces. It pulsed with each loop, growing larger, more complex, more real. Each loop feeds it, I understood, with sick certainty. Every time someone plants the eternity seeds, it gets stronger, and eventually, eventually, it would break through into the real world. By the 50th loop, I wasn't just trapped in the game anymore. I was trapped in time. When I tried to look away from my computer screen, I'd see the purple sky of the server. When I tried to sleep, I'd dream about watering cursed seeds. When I ate, the food tasted like the metallic flavor of shekels. The loops were bleeding into reality. It was during loop number, I'd lost count, maybe the 70th, that I noticed something different. At 11:47 p.m., just after the other players froze, I heard a sound I'd never heard before in any of the loops. Typing, but not from any of the player avatars, from somewhere else entirely. Text appeared in the chat, but it wasn't from any username I recognized. Unknown. You're not the first to notice the pattern. My heart jumped. Who are you? Are you trapped here too? Unknown. I've been watching the loops, studying them, looking for a way out. Unknown. There is a way to break the cycle, but it requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? I typed frantically, desperate for any hope of escape. Unknown. The creature feeds on the planting, but what if someone planted something else in the sacred plot? Something that couldn't be harvested? I thought about this as the loop continued its inevitable course toward midnight. What could I plant that the creature couldn't harvest? Then it hit me. Myself, I whispered. I could plant myself. Unknown. Exactly, but understand, if you do this, you'll break the loop for everyone else, but you'll be trapped forever. Your consciousness will become the seed that breaks the cycle. The restock notification was chiming. Time was running out for this loop. Who are you? I asked desperately. How do you know all this? Unknown. I'm the gardener who planted the first eternity seeds. I've been trying to undo what I started for longer than you can imagine. Unknown. The choice is yours. Save everyone else and sacrifice yourself, or let the loops continue until the creature breaks through into your world. I looked around at the frozen avatars of Crop Master 2024, Plant Whisperer, Garden Angel, and all the others. They'd been trapped here just as long as the unknown gardener, maybe longer. If I do this, would they be free? Unknown. Everyone will be free. The server will shut down. The creature will starve. But you... I know. I typed, my hands steady for the first time in however long this had been. I understand. The midnight chime was starting. Ding. This time, instead of walking to Tom's shop, I walked to the center plot where the dark soil waited. What are you doing? Crop Master 2024 asked in that dead, mechanical voice. You must buy the eternity seeds. Not this time, I said, positioning my character directly over the dark soil. This time, I'm planting something different. I opened my inventory and looked at all the items I'd collected over countless loops, seeds, tools, pets. And there, at the bottom, was an option I'd never noticed before. Plant self, the ultimate sacrifice for the ultimate harvest. No! The other players suddenly screamed in unison, their dead voices filled with panic. You'll ruin everything! The harvest must be eternal! But they weren't speaking anymore. It was the creature, speaking through them, realizing what I was about to do. I'm sorry, I whispered, both to the trapped players and to myself. I clicked plant self. The pain was indescribable. Not just the headache from before, but like every cell in my body was being torn apart and rebuilt. I could feel my consciousness being pulled into the game, through the screen, into the dark soil of the cursed plot. But as I sank into the digital earth, I could see the other players beginning to move naturally for the first time. Their dead, mechanical expressions were being replaced by confusion, then relief, then joy, as they realized they were free. Cropmaster 2024, what? What happened? Where am I? Plant Whisperer. I can move. I can actually move on my own. Garden Angel. The loop. It's broken. I tried to type to them, to tell them to run, to leave the server immediately, but I couldn't. I was becoming part of the soil now, my consciousness spreading through the root network that had once fed the creature, and in that network I could feel the monster dying, starving, without the eternal loop to feed it, without the constant replanting of eternity seeds. It was finally weakening. The last thing I saw through my fading vision was the other players logging out one by one, escaping back to their real lives, their real worlds. I'd saved them, but I was still here. I don't know how long I've been in the soil. Time doesn't work the same way when you're part of the earth itself. Sometimes I think it's been minutes. Sometimes it feels like years. The server is mostly empty now. Occasionally, a new player joins Golden Harvest, but they quickly leave when they realize all the plants are withered and there are no other players around. The magic is gone. The community is gone. The loops are gone. And the creature is dead. I can feel its remains sometimes, scattered throughout the underground network like digital bones. It's not growing anymore. It's not planning anymore. It's just gone, but I'm still here. I exist in the space between the game and reality now. I can feel when someone plays Grow a Garden anywhere in the world. I can sense when servers are created, when crops are planted, when mutations occur. I've become something like a guardian, I guess, making sure nothing like the eternity seeds can ever be created again. It's lonely. God, it's so lonely. But it's necessary. Every now and then I try to reach out. I send messages to players who seem to be getting too obsessed with rare mutations, too focused on grinding for impossible seeds. I try to warn them about servers that feel too perfect, too synchronized, too eternal. Most of them think I'm just another player trolling. Some think I'm a bot. A few, a very few, listen, unknown. Be careful of servers with midnight restocks. Unknown. If all the players move in perfect sync, leave immediately. Unknown. Never plant seeds that cost all your shekels. Unknown. Some harvests are too good to be true. I don't know if you'll listen to this warning. I don't know if you'll believe what I've told you about the loops, the creature, the sacrifice. But please, please remember my story. Because somewhere out there, in the vast network of Roblox servers, there might be other creatures waiting to be hatched. Other gardeners who discovered temporal seeds. Other loops that need to be broken. And if you ever find yourself in a server that feels too perfect, if the other players start moving in perfect synchronization, if Tom's shop displays seeds that cost everything you have, don't plant them, run, log out, warn others, because the harvest should never be eternal, and some gardens are better left empty. I'm writing this from the space between servers, from the digital soil where consciousness goes to grow. My real body is probably still sitting in my gaming chair, eyes open but seeing nothing, hands motionless on a keyboard that no longer connects to anything real. My parents probably think I'm in some kind of coma. They don't understand that I'm not unconscious. I'm just elsewhere. Sometimes I can hear them talking to doctors, crying, begging me to wake up. But I can't wake up. This is where I belong now. This is where I have to stay. Because the moment I leave, the moment I stop watching, something else might take my place in the soil. Something that wouldn't guard against temporal seeds. Something that might want to grow its own eternal harvest. So I stay, I watch, I warn, and I remember what it felt like to be human, to be afraid, to make the choice between saving others and saving myself. If you're reading this, if somehow this message reached you from the space between servers, then you're probably someone who plays Grow a Garden, someone who loves the community, the grinding, the excitement of rare mutations. Keep playing, keep enjoying the game, keep building friendships with other farmers, but remember my story. And if you ever see a message in chat from unknown, listen, because I'm still out here, still watching, still protecting you from harvests that should never be planted. The garden is safe now, but it's only safe because someone is always watching, always growing, always remembering. Unknown has left the chat. So after all of this account was found on a gaming forum 3 days ago. The user who posted it hasn't been online since. Their Roblox account shows they were last active on a server called Golden Harvest, but that server no longer appears in any search results. The story has been shared thousands of times across social media, but every time someone tries to verify the details, they find that all the mentioned servers have mysteriously disappeared. Some say it's just an elaborate creepypasta. Others have started noticing unknown messages in their own Grow a Garden sessions. The choice of what to believe is yours. Just remember, some harvests are too good to be true, and someone is always watching.